children from foodborne illnesses, where the province of Gauteng alone in this year has been plagued with almost 30 fatalities of children who consumed snacks and hawker food from unregulated spaza shops and vendors. We are concerned about the effect this has on female-headed households in our country.
Residents of Soweto say they need more than a month to comply with Eskom's recoding process. Some of them say they also need more time to start paying for electricity. This after Electricity and Energy Minister Hosea Njoramokgopa announced that those who had been consuming electricity illegally by bypassing their prepaid meters had until next month to comply. The power utility completed its meter recoding process at the weekend. Road construction workers have downed tools disrupting traffic flow on the R36 road connecting Liedenburg and the N4 toll road in Mpumalanga. The workers embarked on a protest action demanding that they be paid salaries. Subcontractors are accusing the main contractor of withholding their payments. Some claim to have not received their payments for the past 2 months.
And last year, we have faced the very same problem. We didn't receive our money at the time because now we are going to December time. They are still now not giving us imali. We must pay our drivers, and we have risked with money. We have risked our truck. We have risked with diesel. So those people now, no one is giving us answers.
We are looking for our money. We didn't get any answer from anyone, so we are looking for our money. The concern I have is Edwin must pay us, not the client, because we don't have a contract with the clients. We got a contract with Edwin, so the one we are asking that Edwin must pay us.
Meanwhile, the stuck motorists that include truck drivers have expressed frustrations over the blockaded road.
The road was closed yesterday, so we're planning our job accordingly. So if the road is closed like this, we can't manage to do our job properly. So
it's affecting me in that we see this blockage of this road here. Wasting a lot of time on this road. I was supposed to be in Liedenburg as we speak now. I'm still waiting here. It's frustrating. It's a big issue.
News further afield, a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah has officially come to effect. This comes after both sides had reached an agreement facilitated by the United States of America and France, which promises to end the conflict across the Israeli-Lebanese border that has killed thousands of people. U.S. President Joe Biden says that civilians will be able to safely return to their communities.
Over the next 60 days, the Lebanese army and state security forces will deploy and take control of their own territory once again. Hezbollah terrorist infrastructure in southern Lebanon will not be allowed to be rebuilt. And over the next 60 days, Israel will gradually withdraw its remaining forces. And civilians on both sides will soon be able to safely return to their communities.
Recapping the top story, the ANC Women's League says this week's march to the union buildings will also raise awareness on the impact that the recent spaza shop crisis has on female-headed households. I am Ondalambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, rain disrupts play on day one of the test between Sri Lanka and South Africa, and UEFA Champions League match day 5 takes center stage today. More details at 3:30.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
It's heating up on My Design Rules, South Africa's hottest interior design reality show, this Sunday evening at 7 on S3. Watch as our design duos get cooking on their kitchen spaces. It's the heart of the home, but with the stress of deadline hanging over their heads, it's causing nothing but high blood pressure. Channel your interior designer with My Design Rules, Sunday evenings at 7 only on S3.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And all I can say for you is like, wow, wow, wow. Another day, another show, another day of the National Pulse, another time for you to get a feel of the issues that impacts the nation all throughout the next 3 hours. So wherever you may be, big city, town, dorpy, suburb, whatever it is, village, welcome to the show. My name is Ashraf Garda. Great as always to connect with you. We have a lot to talk about as always on the show, and we certainly welcome your engagement. 086 000 2032 to WhatsApp 0614 104 107, text or voice note messages. And if you want to give yourself a shout out, do so on the social media pages as well as WhatsApp and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is where I'm listening from. Your name, what work you do if you can, and where you listening from. I'll tell you what, I thought about this today because, you know, that there's been this spate of protests in many parts of the country, often about many issues, and in Johannesburg once again, the protests that are taking place, certainly in Westbury, Johannesburg West and parts of Amarentia, I understand, has got to do around water. There's been no water in some places for 3 days, some places even a whole week, right? But that's not what we're going to talk about. We'll talk about that later on, so don't miss that conversation coming up after 4 o'clock. But for now, what's interesting in the different protests, some of them are taking the space of party political protests. For example, the one in Amarentia yesterday or today, I think it was DA getting behind the cause. And then you're having a non-denominational, if I can call it that, on another day. And the same with Westbury, where I see the councillor had to make a point at that she was there in her personal capacity, not there to push her party political line. And I'm just wondering about it to you, right? When you know there's a protest in your area around service delivery, does it matter that a party that you support are spearheading the protest? Or is that a turn off if, for example, you don't support that party? You agree with the cause, but like, no, I don't want to be behind that. Or therefore, would you therefore wait and only support a non-denominational, non-party denominational protest? That's when you'll give it a thumbs up. I wonder what you'll think. I certainly would be very reluctant personally to get behind a single party cause if I don't support that party. Well, that's my thoughts. That's my point. You tell me what's yours, right? So let's get to one of the other issues first up that needs to be considered here. The Department of Education in the Northern Cape has urged law enforcement agencies to deal harshly with matriculants who organize what they call pens down parties after completing their exams. So earlier today, the Minister of Education warned students who will be hosting these parties to stay away from school. But how should parents, and to stay away from alcohol rather, not school, because remember, they would have finished their schooling anyway, right? How should parents and society in general deal with this ongoing annual issue, right? Matakanya is the Secretary General of the school's governing bodies. Appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Good day, Ashragata, and all your listeners, SABC.
Much appreciate your time. So, why do you think this is necessary after they finish school for the school, for the education department still to regulate how they should be having their own fun if it's outside of school premises?
Thank you once again. Condolences to all our children who passed on because of the food poisoning. Now, and we are still really mourning the children, and we can't afford to have other deaths. Like, for instance, these children are calling for the pens down. We know that they are going to be involved in drugs. They are going to be involved in alcohol. They are going to be involved in a lot of things that are not allowed because there will be nobody supervising them. They'll be on their own and doing these things. We used to do these things at school level where we know that there were parents, there were teachers, principals and everything. They used to call them the farewells. Now they call it pens down. And we know that now it's going to be chaotic where they're going. So we encouraged the parents to control their children. We know that there will be law enforcement out there and all that. Then the children will have been hurt. If the law, the police and all come in, then we shall have lost lives.
Okay, let's understand this, right? I'm certainly not supportive, just so that you know, of these pens down parties where people get into drunken rages, and those that've got the money think they must go to the, KZN South Coast. It depends who we're talking about, right? I don't see the benefit of it all. Having said that, it is part of a culture of South Africa, and they do it annually, right, at different levels. But if they're not breaking the law, then what?
Come again?
If they're not breaking the law, what is there to stop them besides their parents deciding they shouldn't do so?
They are really not breaking the law, but if the police intervene, then they would have broke the law. You know that as much as they are not breaking the law, but immediately they start drinking, they start smoking, they start doing that. They'll do sort of things that are not really allowed. And as much as they are not breaking the law, but we know that law is going to be broken immediately when they are under the influence of any other thing that they might do, because they are free to do that.
Okay, so if that's the case, then isn't that the problem, that it's not so much that they are under the influence, it is the causes that causes them to be under the influence. So whether it's drug taking, whether it's alcohol abuse, I mean, clearly somebody is selling it to them. Isn't that the area that you need to be addressing in terms of the social ills? Where does the supply come from in the first place?
Come again, Chatra?
Where does the supply come from? Meaning, if there's no alcohol for them to consume, who's the supplier?
You know, businessmen does not know the rule. I mean, like, for instance, we are just talking about the children who are dying of food, you know, and that question is always that we are asked that question: who is supplying this poisoned food and all this? So the businessman does not really respect any law. Where there are people, then that person see business, then they will go. Whether the liquor is allowed to be sold in the street, but there will be liquor there wherever they are. So that's why now we must strengthen the law enforcement to ask for licenses for those people.
All right. So I hear you. I hear your point about strengthening law enforcement, and I'm saying this as someone who doesn't consume alcohol, just so that you know that, and doesn't encourage it, right? But I am saying that the issue of strengthening law enforcement could just be a call that's going to fall on deaf ears, because we've got hundreds of issues in the country that law enforcement can't enforce. So why would you be that confident that simply making the call out is going to succeed?
Yeah, that's why, you know, law enforcement is just by the way. But what can really happen is that we are calling upon the parents to ensure that they have got control over their children, to not go to these things because they will lose lives and all those, or injured or whatever happens. So it is the role of the parents now to say, no, you are not going there. And from now onwards, I think we must give them the space, maybe years to come, then organize these things in school, at schools where there are supervisors, there are parents, and there are all those things. For now, I think it's the role that must be played by the parents to discourage them from going to these pen down parties.
Okay, but you know, your last point is so interesting. You know, there's matric farewell parties. For some reason, these matric farewell parties take place early in the year, not after the exams. But the real farewell are these pens down parties. So why can't these farewell parties be organized within the school grounds, under school supervision? I mean, what's stopping that?
Well, the schools really abdicated this thing to since the dawn of democracy, in the sense that now then there was emphasis when schools are controlling that. There's schools are not giving these children the right. This right of the children to do whatever. For instance, Ashra, you know that now this civil society pushed until you find that a 12-year child does not seek consent if when that particular child now is pregnant or wants to be pregnant and all, does not need any consent from the parents and all this. So this were just the question of the right and supported by the civil society, and then from there parents start saying, no, we don't have control over these children, and teachers themselves and so on. But we are calling for the parents, we are calling for the schools once again to go back and say, now we must have control over these children. If we don't have control over the children, then we have lost the future.
Well, I would think so. That is why I think, to reiterate the point, I think one part is to have these matric farewell or pens down parties at school premises that is completely governed and regulated. Really, you're saying goodbye to each other. Why do you need to get drunk to do that? That's the one part of it. The second part of it is that there must be ongoing parental advice over the period of time before we even get to law enforcement. Do you get a sense, therefore, certainly where you fit sitting as from the school's governing body position, that it's a cause that you've raised before, but it's falling on deaf ears? That means whether it's school teachers or learners, school teachers in this case, as well as parents, in their ongoing conversations with learners and their children, they're not getting through to them over the years.
And it's a call that we have been always making to say, parents, let's come on board and let's start parenting our children. Two things: parenting our children and become involved in the education of our children. So if we can come to the party and go to the level that we are parenting, then we'll be able to guide the children, because these children still need our guide. And then we guide them and we agree in a school and then advise the school governing body to have a clear policy to say, in this school, this is the way to go.
Okay, and I take it they don't have a clear policy at the moment then? No.
No, they don't have a clear policy.
Maybe that's an area that you need to push for as the Secretary General of the school's governing bodies, right? And let's leave it at that, Matakanya. Thank you for your thoughts. There's many people who want to comment on it. I'll get to Lorraine just now. In the meantime, the Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Khwarube, related to this issue, is called on learners to celebrate responsibly.
With this phase of the NSC exams, I also want to address our learners directly. The end of the exams is a time for celebration, but it must be done responsibly. I urge matriculants to refrain from alcohol abuse during pens down events and matric rage parties. These moments of celebration of achievements should not risk life and safety. It's absolutely important that we do not engage, and you do not engage in reckless behavior. There's nothing more heartbreaking than parents having to bury their children after they've endured long 12 years in school because of having really tempered with irresponsible and dangerous behavior. So we urge our learners to please practice restraint, even in times of celebration, so that you may be able to be there to accept your results and continue with the rest of your life.
Okay, let's get your thoughts. If we ask you daily, what is it that moves the national pulse? And my opinion and yours maybe differ completely, but give it a go anyway. What for you are the biggest issue that moves the national pulse today? 086 000 2032, or you can WhatsApp, text, voice notes 0614 104 107, and in particular reference to this issue that we've just spoken about regarding the pens down parties. Where do you stand on this issue? Let the learners, or the children in this case, do what they want. Come on, man. It's end of school year. It's not none of the school education department's business or governing body's business. It's outside of school premises. Or should there be an intervention? Should it be that the parents must get involved? Should the schools get involved? Should the regulation authorities get involved in a position where we are struggling to regulate so many aspects of South African life? And if you wish to share your own personal stories about yourself, your children, what has happened now or in the past, well, we certainly want to know. I'm Ashraf Garda. This is the National Pulse.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The Green and Gold want to reignite the Protea fire against the Lions of Sri Lanka in the Test Series. What is summer without cricket? Woza nawe! Catch the spectacular first Test Series between South Africa and Sri Lanka at the Hollywood Bets Kingsmead Stadium, where summer cricket comes alive. From 27 November to 1 December 2024 at 9:30 a.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus, Radio 2000, and reports on various SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Have you heard of this thing called Angola's Broken Promises? Well, you now know about it. It's part of our Global Watch feature. We focus on just that. The latest Amnesty International report is titled Broken Promises. Protesters caught between tear gas, bullets and batons in Angola. Let's understand what has happened here regarding these broken promises and what to do about it. Carlos Domingos Coembo is the Amnesty International's lead researcher and author of this report. Carlos, appreciate your time. You're connected to the National Pulse. Carlos, hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you for sharing your time with us. Tell me more about this report. I mean, broken promises clearly makes an emotional connection immediately. What are these broken promises in Angola?
By broken promises, we are talking about the promises made by the Angolan government to the President João Lourenço when he took office in 2017 about the rule of law in Angola, strengthening democracy and respect for human rights. The report found that from at least November 2020 to June 2023, there's been 11 protests. There's been use of excessive and unnecessary force against protesters who just wanted to enjoy their right to freedom of peaceful assembly. So that's basically what we are saying here.
Okay, I suppose let's take a step back then. What is the state of Angola in terms of, when there's protesters, then it inevitably means there are people who are disgruntled. So what is the state of Angola? What is the disgruntlement about?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I was saying protests suggest that the people of Angola are concerned about something, that they're not getting what they want. What are they protesting about?
There are many triggers of protest, but they found that most of the protests are around poverty, around the holding of municipal elections, around police violence itself, and around development issues. As I mentioned before, has been promised when Lourenço took off in 2017 but has not been realized. So we see many young people taking to the street to demand their rights, particularly the holding of elections, addressing poverty, addressing development that they can benefit directly. And police has responded with excessive and unnecessary force that resulted in some cases in death, serious injury. We've also seen cases of arrest or detention, arbitrary arrest or detention of protesters. We have seen cases of misuse of notification systems in Angola, and also the report documented the human rights impact of this police violence.
Okay, so amongst the issues that your report about broken promises highlights, I suppose one would be, not just the broken promises, but how do these broken promises get repaired? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is the main the point here. As long as these promises are directly related to human rights violations, this is where amnesty is sent, and this is also a pattern that Amnesty has documented. This is not the first report that Amnesty is releasing, and unfortunately, we see a continuity of human rights violations for at least, let's say, 10 years, if not more. And the police has been on the streets against particular protesters, for example, requiring that protesters have authorization from authorities, whereas the law itself, the Constitution, the regional and international standards ratified by Angolan government does not require authorization to plan or realize protests.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Thank you for your time, Carlos Domingos Coembo, Amnesty International's lead researcher, author of the report called Broken Promises, which I would suggest maybe you Google it. You'll find that complete report were brought together by Amnesty that looks at a whole range of issues, and protesters now caught between tear gas, bullets and batons in that country. Regarding the issue we discussed earlier on about learners and pens down, it is becoming difficult these days because some of these learners' peers are already working full-time and they buy alcohol with those who are still at schools. I think that's a given, that we've certainly heard that before. It goes back to what we often talk about, which is the culture of the culture of the people and the culture of what people do and what is considered acceptable or not. I certainly have known a few people commenting as well to say it really can't be stopped by the schools. And here's another one from Motusi Rockford saying, I hear the gentleman regarding control of school kids, but I'm standing in front of school-going kids drinking and smoking dacha. They are not near their parents and or near the school. Who is going to supervise them? Think about that. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela Imbana.
Thank you, Ashrafi. New news headlines. The Minister of Electricity and Energy, Josiento Ramakgopa, says most of the customers who have not come forward to upgrade their meter numbers by the end of the deadline were people who have not been buying electricity. The ANC Women's League says this week's march to the union buildings will also raise awareness on the impact that the recent spaza shop crisis has on female-headed households. And the chief prosecutor in the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, has requested an arrest warrant for Myanmar's military leader. A full update for those at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N12 eastbound in Boksburg has a crash reported near Atlas Road exit. The R55 northbound in Barbecue Downs has a crash before Shakespeare Road. In Bedfordview, the N12 eastbound queuing between Gilulis Interchange and the R24 highway split. The N3 northbound is queuing towards the ramp to the N12 eastbound at Gilulis Interchange, and the N12 R24 westbound has a crash reported before Gilulis Interchange, queuing traffic on both routes. In KZN, the N2 southbound queuing towards the M25 Commercial Highway exit. The N2 has a truck crash reported south of Pongola, so you're asked to expect delays. And Umgeni Road westbound, slow moving through Springfield Park. In Mpumalanga on the N4 in Komati Port, community unrest reported on the Mozambique side of the Lebombo border crossing. Motorists are urged to check before travel. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 southbound is queuing towards Racecourse Road exit. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards the Okavango Road exit. And on the R60, a fatal crash reported just south of Worcester, and that's causing delays. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Right, Tumi is our very own Minister of Sport. Which sport are you going to start with? Cricket?
Yes, starting off with cricket. Well, Sri Lanka reduced South Africa to 80 for 4 wickets in 20 overs at lunch on day 1 of the test at Kingsmead in Durban. Earlier, Sri Lanka won the toss and elected to bowl first. Captain Themba Bavuma and Kyle Verreynne were at the crease before rain disrupted play. And from what I heard or saw earlier on, the play is off and they will try again tomorrow because it's still raining. Meanwhile, moving on to the women's side of things, the Proteas women are also in action today. They face England in the second of the 3-match T20 series tonight at 6 p.m. England lead the series 1-0 after a 4-wicket win in the first T20, and Proteas women all-rounder Lisa Murray-Marks is confident that South Africa can bounce back.
Well, yeah, we look at the batting side. Obviously, losing wickets and clusters didn't really help us. Also, from a bowling point of view, tightening up a little bit in the boundary balls. But, yeah, that really is some small areas of improvement needed to level the series tomorrow.
Moving on to football, Mamelodi Sundowns coach Mangoba Ngqithi says that he's quite confident that his side in the CAF Champions League group can still do well regardless of the goalless draw against AS Maniema. They are currently second on the table after yesterday's results and are still yet to face AS FAR, who claimed a win yesterday to top the group, and Raja Casablanca, who sat bottom of the group.
To be straightforward in this group, I think we've got even probably more potential to win more matches away from home. I see it like that, and I also see us winning some matches at home. At this stage, I've not pressed any panic buttons because I think it could have been catastrophic had we lost this match after having lost the final. Going into this match with all the problems we had, if you look at the number of days and the number of matches and how much of a change we had to make in the starting lineup based on the physiological challenges that we had.
Elsewhere, the league phase of the UEFA Champions League has reached its midway point, and the first round of matches in second half concludes on the 27th of November. Liverpool take on Real Madrid in one of the clashes tonight as they look to make it 5 wins out of 5 in the Champions League. Real are without 6 big names this evening, with Vinicius Jr., the latest name to be ruled out after picking up an injury at the weekend. Ancelotti actually only named a 19-man squad to travel to Merseyside. In other selected fixtures, Aston Villa take on Juventus, Monaco versus Benfica, and Celtic versus Club Brugge. Then in rugby, the Springboks will welcome Italy, Georgia, Australia, and Argentina to South Africa in 2025, while the dates were locked in for the tests in the Casalaga incoming series, as well as the home leg of the Casalaga Rugby Championship. SA Rugby are still yet to confirm the venues and kick-off times at a later stage. The Boks will start the defence of the Casalaga Rugby Championship crown against the Wallabies. Then away test against the All Blacks in New Zealand follow on the 6th and 13th of September before the Boks wrap up their Rugby Championship at home on the 27th of September and away on the 4th of October against Argentina. Finally, in motorsport, American car manufacturer Cadillac will become the 11th team on the Formula One grid in 2026. The cars are expected to be powered by Ferrari before it develops its own engines, and the move comes after Formula One rejected the bid, which was headed up by Andretti. So quite interesting that 2026 we are going to see the car manufacturer Cadillac on the streets out there. It'll be interesting.
I can only think of Cadillacs regarding luxury cars and not in races. So how do you make those changes? Okay. Strange world. Listen, by the way, did you see what's happened to Manchester City last night?
Sure. Like from
15 minutes, they conceded 3 goals.
What is going on? Are things tumbling down there?
If he doesn't have money in the bank, and he has money in the bank, meaning he's got some credit with having won 4 league titles,
of course,
he would have been under immense pressure. If he was Erik ten Hag now, it would be crazy.
How long do you think they can go still saying, listen, we still have faith in Pep Guardiola? 2 years? 2 seasons?
Well, 2 seasons is a long time. I mean, I thought.
Do you think they'll let him go if the whole season carries on like this and they struggle to win?
I'm not part of their board, but if you ask me to if I was management, I would certainly give him the benefit of the doubt, because that's what I'm saying. He's got credit in the bank.
Yeah.
And he's earned that. Man United went through a period when they were so useless that one season. That's when Roy Keane basically slated his team, and they went 3 years without winning a league title. And Ferguson rebuilt the club. The question is, if you had a choice to choose any coach in the world to be the coach of your team right now, who would you choose?
I think I'm happy with the coach we have.
Who's we? I'd go for Pep Guardiola. If you want a winner.
Really?
Yes, of course. His record is unbelievable. That's the point I want to make.
But listen, Mourinho always said every single coach goes through a slump. So I guess perhaps this is Pep Guardiola's slump. And at one stage, I actually thought he'll never have a slump. But here we are.
Well, let's see if they don't win the league title. It's still a long way to go. Let's see. They play Liverpool the weekend, by the way, just so that you know that too. Yeah.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Love a good murder mystery? Then Death in Paradise Season 3 will keep you entertained with a series of impossible murders on the beautiful Caribbean island of Saint Marie. Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Channel your inner vroom with Top Gear Season 25 and 26, Monday to Wednesday at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the Tooth Fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul?
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The Malian team, Stade Malien, are on a big mission to triumph in their own backyard. But Stellies of Mzansi Africa want to open their Group B curtain with maximum points in Bamako. This is the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Experience the delight of African football. Stade Malien de Bamako FC versus Stellenbosch FC on Wednesday, 27 November at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For 30 years, we've stood together, advancing collective action to end violence against women and children. But the fight is far from over. Your voice matters.
Every action counts. From educating our communities to supporting survivors, it's time to unite and create a future free from fear. Join SAFM for 16 days of activism. Together we can make a difference. Together we can end the violence. Because 30 years of progress means we cannot stop now. Let's advance the fight. Stand up, speak out, take action. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get your thoughts. What for you moves the national pulse? What do you want to get off your chest? What really are there issues that you want to raise that you feel needs, that the whole nation needs to be hearing as well? Let's get the thoughts of Lorraine in KZN. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, Ashraf. Thanks for taking my call. I just want to say that about 2.5 weeks ago or so, there was an article by what I would call a reputable newspaper where they said the SABC was in trouble. Now, I don't know how true that is, but I'm inclined to want to believe it from what I've witnessed within less than 2 weeks. There was a caller who called in this afternoon, and they were concerned, and I'm not quoting them verbatim, about whether or not they'll be able to get their TV licenses, because this is that time of year when people are buying new appliances. What with Black Friday, you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be the proper thing for SABC.
Lorraine, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry, we
hear
lost
me?
you. You said the proper thing for SABC, then I never heard another thing. Just repeat that part.
Okay, the proper thing for SABC to do is to quell all these notions or what people are saying out there, is represent yourself and speak to the nation. Don't let us guess what the truth is, because then people all types of things that aren't even half the truth. I'm not making a decision. I'm just saying that's the way to go.
All right.
Because there was a lady.
Yeah, Lorraine? I think we've just lost Lorraine again. That line just very, very bad. But okay, I think we've got the gist of what Lorraine is saying. So, Lorraine, here's the thing. Let's just start with what I know. The SABC is an ongoing problem. It's not a one-week problem. It's going on for years where they need government support, and this is because a lot of the SABC programs are not just financially motivated, generated. They have to cover lots of programs that don't necessarily earn an income, but as part of its public service to the people, for example, a state funeral, they would have to cover it anyway. So that's just one part of it. Now, in terms of the now, I agree with you. You know, it would be great if management, senior management, can exactly advise where's the SABC. But it's not for me to say that. But I think I hear you as a listener, as someone who's concerned about the SABC, to say there's lots of rumors, like we hear rumors about other things. Can you please come up and say so? And maybe it's an issue that I'll certainly get Temba and Kiza from my team to say, holy, come on, let's see if they can comment on anything, because I think they do need to do that. Lorraine, thank you for that. Let's move on then now to Namibia, because there's an election day. In fact, it's election day today in Namibia, something we looked ahead to the other day. And remember, SWAPO has been in power for a long time, just like many other political parties that gained independence or delivered independence to those countries. So what's the position now in Namibia? What's the lay of the land, meaning who's going to win it and who isn't? Sophie Makwena covers that beaches in Namibia right now, the SABC News international editor. Sophie, you certainly get around. Good chatting to you. Hi.
Thank you so much, Ashraf.
Thank you. Right, so if it's Wednesday, it must be Namibia. To give us a sense of what's happened today on Election Day.
Well, we visited quite a number of polling stations, and it looks like things were running smooth here in urban areas, particularly in Windhoek. But when you look at some reports that there were challenges in rural areas where some electoral material arrived late. But for now, there is nothing that speaks to a major problem in terms of the elections and how the Electoral Commission handled the elections. But, you know, the crucial time comes when counting starts, and that's where you see more allegations, more reports, and when it's dark, but for now it's quiet, and Namibians have gone to the voting stations in large numbers, particularly the young people.
I suppose in most elections, there's like three key things, right? Is the election free and fair? What is the position regarding violent protests, and then it is turning violent? And the third one is what's the likelihood of there being government or regime change? In this case, SWAPO's been around longer than the ANC, I would think, right? What's the thoughts on all three of them?
Well, when you look at how it has been in Namibia built up, there were no major incidents. And then on voting day, it's relatively peaceful and things are running smooth. In terms of what's going to happen when results are announced or counting starts, it's very difficult. You hear people talking about change. Now, when you speak to other people, you do a follow-up about this change. They are saying we want our lives to change, and I'm going to vote SWAPO. Others are saying we want new leadership. When we talk about change, we mean a change in terms of leadership, because this current leadership can't bring that change. And therefore, it's almost like in Botswana. You know, in Botswana, nobody anticipated what happened because Botswana were very quiet, very, very quiet. I think something was simmering that we couldn't pick up. And the word change doing the rounds. The same here in Namibia. It's quiet. There's no indication in terms of where this thing is going. But I think we are going to have a surprise both ways. Both ways. If it's SWAPO, it will be huge in a sense that you have a woman president. If it's the opposition, it's going to be a big story. Now a change in Namibia, but right now it's you know, when something is simmering, you can't get a sense where this thing is going. You know, it was the same in South Africa. Yes, you knew that people were disgruntled, people were not happy about the governing party, but the 40%, including the opposition, they were shocked, you know, and including the ANC. ANC knew that it was going to lose some votes, but they didn't anticipate that, including the opposition. They were not ready for what happened in the country. That's why you see this confusion.
And in this case, what do the polls suggest? Do the polls give us any indication of what's going to happen?
Not at all. The polls are not saying anything. It looks like nobody is monitoring or watching. I don't know whether people are scared to make predictions. But, you know, we often get a sense of how it's going to go around 6, 7 when people have gone to the polling stations. You are able to, but I don't see anything, including it looks like there was no interest in these elections. Others are saying because the regulations in terms of media, international media coming into the country are so difficult. Perhaps that's the reason. But I think for some, Namibia wasn't a big story. But we don't know. For us, it was a big story because whichever way, it's going to be historic.
Okay. Lastly, what is there one single issue that this election is being contested around?
It's about, you know, they've discovered oil, gas, hydrogen, and you also have diamonds. Now, the issue here is how can these minerals benefit and these discoveries benefit ordinary Namibians? I think we have a big story here developing on the continent where the young people who don't care about the struggle sentiments are saying the colonizers came to this continent, took our minerals, and they made their countries to be what they are today. And with us, we say it's not going to happen, that the minerals of this continent are taken and countries are developing themselves. We want beneficiation. We want to benefit. This time around, this industrial revolution must benefit Africans, not other regions. Okay. And I think it's the message all over Africa, because Africa is rich with minerals.
Okay, well, let's see what finally happens around that, Sophie Mokoena. I'm sure we're bound to talk sooner rather than later. Sophie Mokoena is in Namibia covering the Namibian election at the moment. All very, very quiet on election day, all very still. No violence build-up in the build-up to the election, and maybe unlikely to happen as well, which is a good thing. But whether that will mean there's a chance of a change of leadership in that country where SWAPO has held sway for a long, long time, well, that's what we are going to find out as well. Right. Just before in fact, there's a couple of comments about pens down, which we'll pick up just now.
Ask a woman. Ask a woman stranded on the side of the road with her 2 young crying children whether she is glad she was able to get her latest insurance quote in under 90 seconds. Ask a woman if she feels anyone is there for her. And now ask yourself, when suddenly happens, who's there for you?
Auto and General. Car insurance with 24-hour roadside assistance with live progress tracking. SMS CAR to 43365 for an obligation-free insurance quote. A&G is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The Bees are constantly seeking for a suitable way to move up to the top half. They want to triumph against Leicester City FC.
Visser is in here for Brentford. Johan Visser!
While the Foxes are committed to playing attractive football for 90 minutes as they also eye a top half spot.
Ayew into Vardy, back to Ayew, scores! Leicester have done it late on the road! Jordan Ayew sweeps home! What a move!
This is the Premier League. Catch the spectacular clash between Brentford FC and Leicester City FC on Saturday, 30 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, let's get to other issues. By the way, after 4 o'clock, we'll be chatting all about things Westbury. So Westbury is a township, predominantly coloured township, west of the city of central Johannesburg, sort of, Westbury, Coronationville, Bosman, all those areas sort of one after the other, right? And whereas many other suburbs in Johannesburg have had no water and other basic service deliveries don't come their way, my understanding is that it's even more pronounced in Westbury, and there's been a huge uproar. You know, the usual, enough is enough, but when is enough enough? So the community has been protesting and they're raising the issues, and there's a great deal of disgruntlement, dissatisfaction that things are just not coming their way. So we'll talk about that shortly. In the meantime, AfriForum's private prosecution unit has managed to persuade the NPA to revisit its decision not to prosecute Professor Pierre de Vos in relation to the allegations around the 2022 child pornography case. Apparently, its representations to the NPA identified numerous investigative errors. So, what was the story before and what was so convincing this time around? Let's get the thoughts of Barry Bateman, spokesperson for AfriForum's private prosecution unit. Barry, thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Ashraf.
Thank you. So, what has happened before and what's happened now? What's changed?
Well, the criminal case was filed in September 2022. The matter was supposedly investigated by the police. When the NPA declined to prosecute, we filed a PIA application to get a copy of the docket, which was the docket of the case that was opened by the AfriForum youth representative. And what we found was that this docket contained only 2 statements. The one statement was the AfriForum youth representative who filed the criminal complaint, and the other was an unsigned, uncommissioned document, purportedly a statement from Professor Pierre de Vos. Based on that is what the NPA then made a decision not to prosecute. We made representations at the end of last month saying that this is simply inadequate, that there are numerous avenues of investigation that the state the police did not follow. And these avenues were further opened up by Mr. De Vos in his own statement, this unsigned, uncommissioned statement that I referred to, which the police simply did not acquire. They did not acquire his records related to his handset, IP address records, mobile data records. He refers to a legal expert or a technical expert that he consulted. We don't have affidavits from those people. There's no affidavits from the people he spoke to after he said he was hacked. So there's numerous shortfalls in the investigation, and the NPA, by all indications, agrees with us and has ordered the police to complete those.
Okay, now, at that time, Pierre De Vos made the point that, in fact, his account was hacked. And therefore, many other people's accounts do get hacked anyway, right? What would be his motivation to share something like something that's effectively child pornography as public as he would?
Well, he would have to explain whatever his motivation is. Our question is simply that a criminal case was filed and the police must treat it like any other criminal case when they investigate it. It's simply unacceptable that somebody would be able to provide what appears to be a warning statement that is not commissioned by a police officer. It's not a sworn affidavit, and the NPA makes a decision whether or not to prosecute thereon. The private prosecution unit, one of the issues why we were created is to put an end to selective prosecution, that everybody is equal before the law. We say and make it quite clear that we believe that the Mr. De Vos got preferential treatment because of his status. So we're not going to speculate why or what. We're just saying the police must do their job and investigate this matter as they would any other.
Okay, if you're saying he received preferential treatment because of his status, then how then do you explain the NPA now effectively revisiting the case?
Well, we've exposed what they have not done. It is in our representations. We make it quite clear. It is inexplicable why they would not pursue the various avenues that we have specifically identified. This is a very serious offense that is alleged to have been committed. There are basic lines of investigation. Let's even look at it from the other side. Mr. De Vos opened a case of his own saying that he was hacked. Mm-hmm. Well, surely he must be very eager to have the police investigate this. He must be willing to hand over his handset. He must want to know who hacked his phone, and whether or not anybody's going to be held accountable for that. So we believe that even in his matter, the police didn't do what is expected, and we trust that they will do it now.
And just help me understand this. Why would it be that simple to know who hacked your phone?
Well, it's not that it would be so simple to who would know would hack your phone. That's what the police would have to investigate, establish all the evidence and the data that they can gather, and get an expert to analyze it and establish if that is indeed the fact.
Now, of course, we've chatted to Prof. Pierre De Vos, and again he's saying, and I'm quoting, "I can only hope that the SAPS will," first of all, he's saying no further comment. Let's put it that way, and then say, "I can only hope that the SAPS will complete yet another investigation into these false allegations speedily, so that this matter can be put to rest once and for all." Your response to his response?
Well, we hope that the police do indeed investigate speedily and present a completed docket to the NPA in order to make a decision whether or not to prosecute.
What do you think is going to happen next, or what should be happening next?
Well, we've got the letter from the NPA, from the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions in Gqeberha, saying that she has ordered the SAPS to conduct further the outstanding investigations, which is what we highlighted in our letter, but also she has requested reports from the prosecutors who made the decision not to prosecute, explaining why they took those decisions. So we will continue to engage with the NPA and ensure that the matter is followed through accordingly.
Okay, we will certainly follow that story as well. Certainly a very concerning story, certainly, as you mentioned, Pierre De Vos, someone that many of us know in the public space. We've certainly interviewed him often, maybe even more so than I've spoken to you. Barry Bateman, appreciate your time, spokesperson for AfriForum's private prosecution unit. Right. Lots of further comments, by the way, on some of the issues we've been speaking about. So besides reminding you once again that we'll chat all about things around Westbury, here's a call to you, right? Specifically, if you are you a member of the community of Westbury? I want to get your story. I want to know your personal story about living in a, could I say, suburb, township, where just about everything is going wrong, and it's just prolonged, and there's just no light at the end of the tunnel. What do you do in this case? What's your life experience like? Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela Mbana.
Ashraf, top stories at 4. Ramokgopa briefs media on the progress of meter recoding process and a request for an arrest warrant of Myanmar's military leader. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Mbana and a very good afternoon. The Minister of Electricity and Energy, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, says most of the customers who have not come forward to upgrade their meter numbers by the end of the deadline were people who have not been buying electricity. Ramokgopa was briefing journalists in Cape Town on progress regarding the process of recoding prepaid electricity meters. Eskom has extended the deadline for this process to be completed to the 13th of December. Ramokgopa says some of the Eskom customers have told him that the last time they bought electricity was in 2018.
I walk the queues like I always do, trying to understand what is the problem. So where to is the ground zero of this challenge. I spoke to more than 100 people individually. It's on record. They tell you, no, my son, the last time I bought electricity was in 2018. The projection that is there, it's an evil SOE called Eskom. No, my son, I've got a naughty grandson. You know, he just connected me illegally. I apologize. So that's what we're dealing with. So I want to repeat that. Anyone who bought electricity legally in the past 6 months is not on the queue.
The ANC Women's League says this week's march to the union buildings will also raise awareness on the impact that the recent spaza shop crisis has on female-headed households. The ANC Women's League briefed the media today ahead of its march on gender-based violence against women and children this Friday in Pretoria. Secretary General Nokuthula Nqaba says that the Women's League is confident that government will find a solution to this current crisis.
The march to the seat of government in our collective commitment to defend our children from foodborne illnesses, where the province of Gauteng alone in this year has been plagued with almost 30 fatalities of children who consumed snacks and hawker food from unregulated spaza shops and vendors. We are concerned about the effect this has on female-headed households in our country.
The South African National Taxi Council, SANTACO, says men should rise and play a pivotal role in the fight against the abuse and killings of women and children. Members of the council joined a march led by men in Bloemfontein in the Free State to mark the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. SANTACO's provincial chairperson, Morena Mtimkulu, says his organization has a desk that addresses issues of gender-based violence.
We need to take care of the women and the children in our country, and we've got a pivotal role as the taxi industry to champion the interests and the protection of women and children in our country and in our industry.
One of the accused in the killing of 2 SAMU leaders has told the High Court in Thohoyandou, Limpopo, that he was brutally assaulted 2 days before he was ordered to sign a document. Percy Radzuma says he later discovered that the document contained a confession statement. His advocate, Nzako Hlungwane, has been leading witness evidence in a trial within a trial on the admissibility of the confession statement. Radzuma's siblings, Simon, Percy and Ndibuo, are being tried on more than 40 counts, including the murders of SAMU leaders Timson Mosetso and Ronald Mani. Mosetso and Mani were strong critics of the Vemba District Municipality for investing in the defunct VBS Mutual Bank. This is how Advocate Hlungwane concluded cross-examining Percy Radzuma.
Were you given any reason as to why you had to identify the said Hawusla? How were you being assaulted?
Uroro kwanga ndiko urwiwa ndiko rewa Zimbabwe ndiko ruanga mipama.
Kick me on the ribs and then open hand.
Was there at any stage whereby you signed any document?
Una chifhinga chanda signisha dzibambiri.
In news further afield, the chief prosecutor at the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, has requested an arrest warrant for Myanmar's military leader. Min Aung Hlaing is accused of crimes against humanity against Rohingya Muslims. Tens of thousands of Rohingya have been killed and hundreds of thousands others forced to flee Myanmar, mainly to Bangladesh. Khan says he will continue to pursue other senior officers in Myanmar.
We will continue to focus in the coming weeks and months as we seek to submit additional applications in this situation. In doing so, we will seek to show that the Rohingya have not been forgotten, that they, like all people around the world, deserve and are entitled to the protection of the law.
Recapping the top story, the Minister of Electricity and Energy, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, says most of the customers who have not come forward to upgrade their meter numbers by the end of the deadline were people who have not been buying electricity. I am Wandile Mbana for SFM. Headlines at 4:30.
In your sports this hour, Marumo Gallant's latest PSL club hit with FIFA ban and Blitzboks in high spirits, ready to conquer Dubai Sevens again. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Grayston Drive eastbound in Sandton has a crash reported near the M1 highway. In Midrand, the N1 northbound is queuing towards Olifantsfontein Road. The N1 southbound slow moving towards New Road, and the N1 southbound has a crash reported before Buccleuch interchange. In KZN, the M7 queuing near the M4 highway. The N2 southbound queuing towards the M25 Commercial Highway exit. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park, and on the N2 a truck crash reported south of Pongola, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend, and Batencrag Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of CAPTCHA will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theatre of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, so Westbury, I mean, it's not isolated. You know, today Westbury, tomorrow you can talk about 20 other communities around the country. And one thing in common with all these communities, right, is they have a serious service delivery deficit. You can say, in fact, the many of the big cities have service delivery deficits. But when you ring fence a community and they sense that their problems are worse than others, and they attempt to try and get things sorted out, and nothing really happens according to them, right? Well, then what do they do next? Now, we know at this point in time, Johannesburg, the city, the world-class African city, in inverted commas, they've been battling with water shortages. Even the suburb that I live in, completely erratic water for the last 2.5 days or 3 days almost. There's water now, but it comes and goes, so it's almost like water shedding, if I can call it that. But I understand it's even worse in Westbury, west of Johannesburg, right? So what we thought is, let's do this. We're gonna do 3 things. We're gonna get an SABC reporter just now to give us an update of exactly what has happened there. And then later on, we'll chat to Fidel Havaji, who's been covering that story extensively. We'll get analysis from her. But first things first, I'm going to play a clip that was played of Melissa Davids, who's a Patriotic Alliance leader, member of the PA, but also a Westbury community leader. And that sound was also played on Sakina's show around 12 o'clock today. But it's so powerful in terms of the position that she expresses herself, that it needs to be listened to and re-listened to. So here it is.
I am directly affected by this water outage. I'm in Coronationville, but what got me here this morning is when I got a call from one of the residents in the community pleading for assistance because they were being attacked, beaten up and slapped and sworn at by a police officer. We weren't, the residents wasn't in this main road. They were literally there on their side, which is Fuel Road. And guess what happened? The police came, they said, this is not Soweto, you are not going to protest here. You have no human right to do that. And they said, we are going to protest. And I saw it from the video that they sent to me. And they said, please, we called the councillor. She's not answering her phone. We've called for help. No one is coming. Can you come to our rescue? Because the roads are closed, I couldn't drive down. I had to run all the way from home to here. And when I got here, the police was gone. But just after that, a whole lot of police came while the community was sitting here peacefully protesting. They started manhandling them. They started beating them. They started taking their guns out, wanting to shoot them. And everybody surrendered and they put their hands up. What is wrong with colored people protesting? Does colored lives then not matter? I have been threatened the whole time for the longest of time. I'm going to be removed as a councillor. So I'm a PR councillor under the capable leadership of Gayton McKenzie from the Patriotic Alliance. I've been appointed as a PR councillor to better serve my community. We are not here to incite violence. I am not here to incite violence. But I am directly affected by this water outage. We have matriculants writing exams. How do we expect them to bath? We have elderly people, majority in Coronationville, elderly. How do we expect them to take their medication and to live? I mean, not a drop of water. There's a Coronationville community group, right, where residents are literally sitting, safeguarding their phones to see who's going to say there is actually a drop of water at 1 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the morning. The councillor has a community group where she remove people from the group when they ask for assistance. I mean, the councillor, I must be very honest with you, the councillor cannot bring the water back. That is not what the community is asking. The community is asking for support. You see, I'm standing here to support. I'm not wearing regalia. I am not wearing my councillor's badge because I'm not pushing powers around. The people need a voice. We have elderly people here. We have people come here from entities undermining the intelligence of these residents. Every single day there are shootings and killings here. We don't see all this police force. We don't see people with short guns. Did you hear what the one officer said? While he asked, who's Melissa? I said, I'm Melissa. He allegedly spoke to the council already. He said, yeah, bring our short guns. We are shooting them. Is that a threat? Are you saying to us our lives don't matter? Do you know how sensitive? Do you know how sensitive that topic is? It's like throwing salt on an open wound because you are basically saying we are going to shoot you and kill you like it already happens in your community. We had people fainting, passing out this past weekend because of the stress, the anxiety of paying the 200 Rand rate. So when you see this community here, you don't see an angry community. You see a frustrated community. You don't see a violent community. You see a hurt community. So I am not here as a politician. I'm not here as a councillor. I am here as the voice to the voiceless. I am called to act with passion, respond with compassion, and execute my duties as a servant with military precision for my community.
Melissa David, now you know why we replayed that sound. It is so powerful, not just from this young South African councillor who is a politician, but a community leader at the same time, but also insofar as how she reflects a reality in her community. And to quote that part, you don't see an angry community, you see a frustrated community. You don't see a violent community, you see a hurt community. How seriously, if you're the president of the country, if you're the Premier of Gauteng, if you're the Mayor of the city of Joburg, how do you respond to that when they talk about you see a hurt community? So we'll chat to Fidel Hafaji later on because she's been covering that story as well extensively. But first things first, let's get up to date with what exactly is the position now. Session Naidu is the SABC News reporter covering the story too. Session, thanks for your time. You're connected now to the National Pulse.
Yes, good afternoon.
Thank you. So are you there now, or you were there this morning, I take it, right?
Yes, so we were there from quite early this morning when residents took to the streets to protest. As you heard from Melissa's clip, the residents are extremely frustrated by the situation that has been plaguing them for a number of years now. So it was, quite tense earlier on today when that altercation happened with residents and the police. Thereafter, the situation calmed down quite a bit. And I think it was around 11 o'clock or so when, the heavy rains came down and the protesters actually dispersed quite peacefully.
Okay, so what are the issues? I mean, you've heard Melissa David's really a complete frustration in that plea, right? Give us the backstory in terms of what are the problems in that community. The most urgent one, I take it, is the water issues, but it's certainly not just the water, is it?
Yes, that is correct. So basically the main issue is in regards to what they are now terming some sort of water shedding problem. And just to put you into perspective of what this basically means is that throughout the day, the taps are run dry. There's no water coming out of the taps at all throughout the day, and only from around midnight to around 4 o'clock in the morning. And this is also scattered. It's not specifically from midnight to 4. It's around that time is when the water is actually switched on and the residents can actually open their taps and get water. So this is what is basically frustrating to them because, as you would know, there's elderly people who need water on all the time during the day. There's children going to school, people going to work, and so on. So this is what has actually frustrated these residents to a point where they are now saying that they have to take to the streets to get government's attention, because basically what they say has been happening is that over the years, several government officials from the city of Joburg and so on have been coming down to the ground and telling them that they are working on the problem and fixing it and so on. However, the water only comes back for like 2 days during the day, and then it's the same situation thereafter. So these residents are really, really frustrated. Just to give you a reaction from the city side, there was a video that actually went into the groups of Coronationville and Westbury and so on by the acting councillor of that area. So I'll just play you a quick piece of that, so just you can get a sense of what is being said from the city.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Good morning, residents of Ward 69. My name is Councillor Vicky Jacobs. I am standing in for Councillor Sherman at the moment. We are aware of the water issues facing the residents of Ward 69. We are currently at council. One of the things that we did at council today is we had a picket. We were telling the mayor that we want no more dry taps in the city of Johannesburg, and that includes the areas of Melville, Western, Westbury, all the affected areas in Ward 69 as well. We do not believe this is fair on the residents. The residents didn't ask for this. What we have done as councillors, we have requested tankers to go around and to assist. I have been liaising with community members. I have been liaising with Johannesburg Water, and we are asking that you just hold on. We are addressing the issue. We are attending to the issue, and this. The water crisis cannot be assigned to any individual person, but a governing party that has failed the residents. I will keep the residents updated. I have asked to be put onto the groups as standing for Councillor Sherman at the moment, and I am liaising directly with her as well.
So that was just a short clip from the acting ward councillor of that area, where, as you would have heard, she in fact, together with a few others, actually protested in council, just to get the mayor's attention to the situation at hand. So hopefully, the residents, please don't fall on deaf ears once again, and we do see, some hope coming and their water being fully back.
But I get a sense, right? And I mean, so I live in a suburb about maybe 10 kilometers from Westbury, and it's a predominantly middle-class suburb. The frustrations are the same, excepting I think people can afford to make a plan. That's the one big difference, right? Compared to a community like Westbury, where they're completely destitute, huge unemployment rates, high levels of dissatisfaction, and you have no real connections to try and make plans for yourself, right? Explain, therefore, what is your understanding of this deep level of frustration? Because, council, as I think Melissa Davids made the point, a councillor can't bring you water. They really can't.
Yes.
And I think many people don't realize that they can simply pass on a message. They can't do a thing more than that.
Yes, that is correct. So as you would know, unemployment and so on is extremely rife in the Westbury area around Coronation and so on. So many of these people heavily rely on the water tanker services and so on, because buying water for some of these residents is actually completely out of their budget. They can't afford it at all. And in terms of the amount that you would need in terms of buying water for, having a bath, flushing the toilets, washing your dishes on a daily basis would be, quite absolutely unfeasible, I would say, for someone to be buying this amount of water on a daily basis. So that is where these concerns are coming in.
Well, let's leave it at that, Sasha Naidu. There's a sense of absolute helplessness and a sense of hopelessness, and that comes through to the point about frustration, and people just don't know what to do next. Fidel Haffajee comes up next.
It's heating up on My Design Rules, South Africa's hottest interior design reality show, this Sunday evening at 7 on S3. Watch as our design duos get cooking on their kitchen spaces. It's the heart of the home, but with the stress of deadline hanging over their heads, it's causing nothing but high blood pressure. Channel your interior designer with My Design Rules, Sunday evenings at 7 only on S3.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
So to my point, I mean, we are also frustrated. We're having intermittent water, cutoffs in my community, but somehow we are able to make a plan. And I think the key part is, middle class communities just have the budget to go and buy some water from, the local supermarket. But for them and many others, absolutely reliant on others to try and assist them. So there's a sense of being destitute. So what really is the backstory to what's happening? And perhaps how has this affected people, like the human story around these water cutoffs and so many other service delivery issues? Now, Fidel Haffajee is the associate editor at the Daily Maverick, and she's certainly written about this and commented about this on her, certainly on Daily Maverick, but certainly on her, she's tweeted about it on the X platform too. Fidel, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. Good to be with you.
Thank you. Well, I could say, I would think that community, Westbury and Coronation, their pulse rates sky high. They are furious. I've watched the videos.
Absolutely. So, there's not a week that goes by where the community affected by what's called the commando system of Johannesburg Water doesn't have problems. It's been reported many, many times, and every week, a few times a week, they will tell you that they don't have water. So it's been intermittent, but when it goes on for 6 days, you reach a point of desperation. It's a community of resistance, and so last month it protested, and then yesterday again and today.
And the type of protests that have taken place, I mean, we've heard testimony from Melissa Davids, who is a councillor, but, you know, her sense of desperation was just, I mean, we amplified it because it needed to be amplified. Like there's a sense of brokenness about the community because they sense that people will do nothing about it. Do you get the same sense as well, that whereas other communities complain that certain communities, even less gets done in those communities, or they're also unable to withstand these service delivery shortages where other communities can?
You know, you were saying earlier that Joburgers make a plan. We like that. And we're also people of good faith. So, for example, the former mayor, Kabelo Gwabanda, went to school in Kari. And one of his first stops was to go there and say, we're going to sort out your water problems tomorrow. Obviously, that hasn't happened. So I think this is a community deeply frustrated by ongoing promises that this water issue is going to be behind them, and that simply isn't the case. They really get impacted badly, although it's correct what the city manager, Floyd Brink, I think, has said, that there is a solution, but it's going to be a few years before that really begins to bring comfort and service to those communities.
So what's your understanding? I mean, interesting enough, I think Water Can, headed by another Ferial Adams, so not to get confused, right, made the point that one thing is the problem, but the lack of communication, you know, true effective communication, as opposed to, you know, we know the problem, we look into it, right, has been shocking. What's your thoughts of what actually is the problem and what is the solution?
So the Hursthill 1 and 2 reservoirs, they simply don't hold enough water to supply that part of the city. The systems, as Ferial would have told you, that connect to it are really old and wonky. So there's a massive infrastructure fix happening there, but it's going to take many years. There's a beautiful reservoir going up. I don't know if you've seen it, just as you head up to Brixton, right close to the tower there. So there is a really great reservoir going up. It's being well built, extremely well managed by a project manager. And in a few years' time, certainly you are going to see the benefits of that help those communities, which, because they're quite high up, they often do not have water as very, very regularly. So that is going to happen. But until then, an interim and better plan has to be made, because what happened here is that I think we've spoken out about it before. Both the substation and the pumping station of Rand Water went down. That happens pretty regularly. And from that, you then have these chronic water shortages. As has been explained to me by Mr. Mukweva of Johannesburg Water, it's not like load shedding where there's a switch on and off and you can get your electricity quickly. Water systems take a much longer time to recover, and I think that's what we're seeing now.
So you speak about an interim and better plan. You're not the expert, I understand that, but what is your understanding of what would be a better plan?
It's bypassing of the reservoir is beginning to happen. Last night you saw a better pumping from Rand Water to the city, but that can't go on forever because the city can only get so much as per its license from Rand Water. If you look at dam levels, they're okay, they're not great. It's very hot, so evaporation's a real problem. I do think that in the interim you've got to get better tankering happening there, and then I know that Logan, I think Munsami of Johannesburg Water could better explain to you what the thinking is.
Well, maybe we'll follow up with him as well. In the meantime, what is your sense, if you've been able to get to the people of how they're feeling? I mean, are there one or two personal testimonies you can share with us?
Yes, of course. So, I mean, we have citizen reporters in the area. Much thanks to Mr. Michael Thompson, who keeps us informed all the time. He was telling me the story of the Frederick Old Age Home in the area, which, you know, in the old age homes, there'll be community members who take people to hospitals or they take them shopping. They couldn't do that because of the protests, and the protests were not violent, but they were quite rough. You saw the stones that had been placed across the road. So old people really inconvenienced. I spoke to people at the hospital, including the CEO, Dr. Arthur Manning. So while the borehole that was put in place by Gift of the Givers really does take it from crisis to problem, he also said that sometimes the borehole doesn't work, and other doctors I spoke to said that there are many areas of the hospital, like the research block, which don't have water, and this causes true hardship in a hospital.
Absolutely.
Then we spoke to the principal of a local school who said that because the tankers weren't coming around, they had to pay 8,500 rand to fill their jojos. And I know that school, St. Teresa's Convent, often has to close early because of the water issues.
And just lastly, we're on to news time. All things considered, I know they've been protesting. What is your opinion about the power of a protest?
Well, the power of protest today saw people actually hearing from the city manager, Floyd Brink. The mayor hasn't visited there. I know he was doing an inner city tour yesterday, but this for me, Joburg's water, Ashraf, for me, is a state of emergency and disaster. You know, across the city, you have similar problems. You've experienced it. We've all experienced it. I do think it needs to be taken more seriously by national government.
A state of emergency and disaster, and maybe needs to be spoken about in that breath. Fidelь Haffajee, thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Feel free tweet some of the links to some of the articles you've written out. I'd gladly share that. Just tag me as well as SAFM Radio. Thanks for your time, Fidelь Haffajee. Let's get the news headlines now on Della Imbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. News headlines. The Minister of Electricity and Energy, Dr. Hosiyenso Ramakgopa, says there is a reduction in the number of Eskom customers who did not upgrade their meter boxes. Marking of the 2024 National Senior Certificate Examination will begin on the 1st of December. Minister of Education, Siviwe Gwarube, says scripts are now being moved to marking centers across the country. And Lebanese civilians have been trying to head back to their homes in the south after a ceasefire came into force between Israel and Hezbollah. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The M1 northbound has a crash before Woodmead Drive. Beyers-Naudé Drive westbound in Cresta has a crash near Judges Avenue. In Pretoria, the N1 northbound has a crash before Rigel Avenue. All lanes are open. And Mabopane Highway westbound, a crash reported near the Hairpin Bend. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Ashburton has a stationary truck after Market Road exit. The N2 southbound is queuing towards the M25 Kumashi Highway exit, and the N2 has a truck crash reported south of Pongola, so you're asked to expect delays. In Mpumalanga, the N4 in Komatipoort has community unrest reported. On the Mozambique side of the Lebombo border crossing, motorists are urged to check before travel. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend, the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive, the M5 northbound is slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange, the N7 Jakes Harold Drive southbound is queuing at Voortrekker Road, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards the Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
Right, Tumi, what are we talking? We spoke about cricket earlier, but there's like stop-go. What's on the go now?
Well, we start off with football, where Stellenbosch FC will begin its inaugural campaign in the CAF Confed Cup group stage when it takes on Stade Malien in Mali tonight at 6 p.m. The Winelands side was impressive in the preliminary stages after scoring 11 goals while only conceding 1. And coach Steve Barker heads into this match with a squad filled with Bafana talent after Devon Titus, Sage Stevens, and Fawaz Bazadine recently representing the national side, all set for tonight's game. Meanwhile, Marumo Gallants have become the latest Premier Soccer League side to be slapped with a FIFA ban. This reportedly for their failure to pay striker Moape Musonda. Now, Musonda has never officially been on Gallants' books. However, he did play for Morocco Swallows before the Dubai Birds sold their status to Abraham Sello ahead of the start of the 2023-24 season. And it's believed that Musonda, whose contract with Swallows was terminated prematurely last year, had a payment arrangement with the Soweto outfit and is still owed 3 million rand before that contract was terminated. Then earlier on, Ashraf, we were talking about how City is going to face Liverpool, while Akai Gundogan has admitted that defeat at Premier League leaders Liverpool on Sunday could end Manchester City's Premier League title challenge as they scramble to end their poor run form. Now, City squandered a 3-0 lead against Feyenoord in the Champions League yesterday, which was for the first time in his managerial career that Pep Guardiola saw his side fail to win a match after leading by 3 goals. And City are already 8 points behind Arne Slot's Liverpool following 3 straight defeats in English top flight. And should they lose, Guardiola also believes that the title race for them is definitely over.
I was one of the fortunate ones.
This is the if they lose to
If they
Liverpool.
lose.
Yeah.
Well, he would be right. Okay, but
Yeah.
let's hear what he has to say.
Yeah, we'll see how they're doing. But moving on to athletics, South African athletics legend LJ Fazale has urged young athletes to prioritize investing their earnings, highlighting that a career in sports is often short-lived. Fazale holds the national 400-meter hurdles record of 47.66 seconds, and the 39-year-old retired from athletics at 33 after 17 years of participation and now works as a lecturer while also contributing as a part-time analyst for a pay TV channel.
I was one of the fortunate ones that I've earned some sort of money in athletics, and you also get used to a lifestyle. But now you scale down about a third of the salary that you used to. Remember, the diamond leagues, there's some prize money, there's club money, there's shoe sponsorship, but all of a sudden it's gone. And how do you replace it? Then you start at zero. Remember, my peers at the age of 33, they already got like 10 years experience. But fortunately, I worked as a teaching assistant at University of Pretoria, so I taught some of the modules, most sports modules, so I gained also experience. And after athletics, I worked on contract here and there, and then there was a vacancy open, and I applied for it, and I got it.
Then moving on to cricket, the International Cricket Council will meet this week to determine the destiny of next year's Champions Trophy after India refused to play in host nation Pakistan. Earlier this month, the ICC informed the Pakistan Cricket Board that India would not tour Pakistan for the 8-team tournament, leaving the fate of the event hanging in the balance. And India won't tour because the nuclear-armed neighbors have fought 3 wars since being carved out of the subcontinent's partition in 1947. And that rivalry is often reflected on the cricket field. Finally, in motorsport, with the championship title wrapped up, the attention now turns to the Constructors' Championship heading into the Qatar Grand Prix this weekend. There are 103 points left on the table through 44 apiece in the Lusail race, and the season finale in Abu Dhabi with a further 15 up for grabs in the Qatar Sprint, an event that McLaren finished 1-3 at in 2023. Now, the nearest challengers to McLaren are Ferrari, who took 12 points out of the team in Las Vegas to reduce the deficit from 24 to 36, from 36 to 24 rather, or exactly what it would need to do. Now, Red Bull are also in the mix, but are some 53 points behind McLaren, and given the alarming slump in the form of Sergio Perez, makes a third straight Milton Keynes's crown a long shot.
So listen, before I let you go, we speak about coaches who are winners and then things go wrong and how do they respond to that. So we've got a voice note from a listener, caller, who wants to comment about Mamelodi Sundowns and their coach.
Ashraf, Flores here again from the Western Cape, man. I really get upset with this coach, Manoba. He's a crybaby. He keeps on complaining. If you want to be champions, you need to play day in, day out. Sundowns has a big squad. They have the money. Whenever something goes wrong in his team, he complains. Man, this is the worst coach I have ever heard about. He's always complaining. Yeah, I think we should dub him Coach Complaining. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Coach complaining. Does he have a point?
This is actually the first time I actually hear any fan complaining against Coach Manqoba Mngqithi. But when I heard him talk earlier on about the number of days that they've been playing, I also thought, but Sundowns is used to playing all these many matches.
That's the price
also.
of success, right?
Yeah.
If you get knocked out of tournaments, you don't play games. Then you
Exactly.
Just choke. Well, maybe get up some sound. Can you do that? See if we can get some sound of him complaining. Just so that we can satisfy that audience who are very irritated by Coach Complainer. More sports in an hour.
Everybody needs an island adventure. Think about it. White sandy beaches, tall coconut trees, the sun shining down on you. Moments that will have you singing, when the water's so blue. Well, this is no typical island adventure. 18 contestants will spend 39 days on the island of the idols, strategizing, backstabbing, forging and breaking alliances. Here, their meals aren't guaranteed. They eat what they catch. One mistake or betrayal might get them kicked off the island. It's a battle for $1 million on Survivor 39. Channel your best reality with Survivor Season 39. Island of the Idols, Thursdays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
For 30 years, we've stood together, advancing collective action to end violence against women and children. But the fight is far from over. Your voice matters. Every action counts. From educating our communities to supporting survivors, it's time to unite and create a future free from fear. Join SAFM for 16 days of activism. Together we can make a difference. Together we can end the violence. Because 30 years of progress means we cannot stop now. Let's advance the fight. Stand up, speak out, take action. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the numbers with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good talking to you. You've got Nampak's yearly trading, an update on theirs, and then local and global markets.
Yes, Ashraf, and afternoon to you and to the listeners. And market participants were not happy because the share price fell by 13%, and the company managed to embark on disposing some of its assets, and that's since August 2023. Hence, various assets are classified as for sale and for discontinued operations. And the guys also from their total operations turned into profitability. Remember, the lender requirements to repay 720 million of net debt from disposing assets by 30 September 2024 has been achieved by using the proceeds from those asset sales. And when it comes to markets are likely to remain edgy as the second Trump administration brings back uncertainty about policy making. And the latest Fed minutes indicates that many policymakers are in agreement that interest rates must be reduced, but gradually. And China's industrial profits fell by 10% in October as the deflation worries lingers. And that 60-day ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah started today, and market participants continue to assess the Trump's tariff threats while waiting for the Fed's favorite inflation gauge, and that is for indications on how the Fed may proceed when it comes to their rate decision at their December meeting. And locally, the total number of liquidations increased by 44.1% in October 2024 compared to October last year. All traders are evaluating ceasefire deal while also digesting the unexpected substantial draw when it comes to U.S. oil inventories, and that's ahead of Sunday's OPEC Plus meeting. Oil is flat at $73 a barrel. Gold prices rebounded as the dollar weakened ahead of the release of that U.S. data, and we say gold is up 0.7% at 2,651. Global stocks are cautiously down, waiting for that inflation number, with the JC down 0.3%, dragged mainly by our financials, which are down 1%, and the rand fell almost 0.2% against the dollar, 18.13 and 22.97 to the pound and 19.16 to the euro.
Perfect. Thanks for that update. We'll do another one with you, Makwe, tomorrow. Thanks for your time. Right. Let's get to your thoughts on some of the biggest issues that gets your pulses racing. You know, you always get a feel of the pulse, and you feel it differently to I. So what do you feel? Right up next.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
All right, I'm going to play some of the comments we've had. Let's just run through some of them.
Good afternoon, Tate Ashraf Garda, Israel Oxengate from Colleen. Mr. Garda, I wanted to ask you if it's going to be possible. There's a guy who normally calls in. I heard him twice or thrice on your show. His name is Butana. Yes, Butana from Rosebank. I like the guy. I like his voice. His high-pitched voice. He reminds me of another friend of mine's voice, Mr. Eric Nike. Is it possible that your guys, your producers, can just link me up with Bhutan? I would like to have a chat with the guy. I would like to just strike a conversation, him and I. I like his voice, you know. It's a high-pitched voice. He sounds like he's fighting, but he's not. Butana from Rosebank.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Absolutely, you're quite right. He's always enthusiastic no matter what the situation is, and he says it loud, like, with great degree of energy, clearly. Well, I'll tell you what the best we can do is, Butana's probably listening, and if he's up for it, he can leave us his number and say, hey, please, yeah, we're quite fine with you connecting and vice versa. So, yeah, that's the best, and maybe Keys listening will make a note of your number, and if Butana's up for it, then we'll connect you. If he's not, then we can't do much, right? Let's talk about the learners that we touched on earlier in Pens Down.
Ashraf, man, these people are taking us for a ride, man. There are many things that they were supposed to police instead of being after the children. It doesn't mean if you've got a medical condition, you're diabetic, you can't drink alcohol, you are refusing others to drink alcohol. As you care. No, where you are coming from, you used to do so. It's very wrong. There are many issues that they were supposed to be policing. They were supposed to be sitting down and write the SOP regarding to the report of Auditor General, or how many years are we going to sentence the people who have misused the funds of the state. How about you? Anonymous and Guyana.
Well, I mean, about misuse, but I do get the point about the fact that they are completely strained with some of those basic things that we're struggling with policing. I mean, we know that they can't cope with violence and crime and murder every single day. This is another one. It's still a problem. They just can't cope. That's the truth. How will they?
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. What is moving my pulse, Mr. Ashraf, is the SNDF motor vehicles that were refurbished by, I don't know, is it the Cuban mechanics or Cuban doctors? I don't know if these cars are now making coffee for the SNDF because they spend a lot of money, and we have got a whole lot of mechanics who are not having work here. What's happening there?
I can't tell you what's happening there, but okay, you've raised the point. If somebody knows better than you know and I know, then let's hear it. You can certainly feel free to call in, okay?
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you, Mafuta? Ashraf, I am a little bit relieved because of the ceasefire between the Hezbollah army and Israel. But regardless of not knowing its details, but this shows that the US has the power to influence the direction of a conflict if they are interested, because how quick these negotiations has been done, it shows that on the Gaza war, the US is the one who are reluctant to influence the direction of that conflict. But for Mr. Biden, I think the sooner it goes, the better, because his wealth of experience and maturity is amounted to nothing because he had not done the right thing, but just caused confusion, Ashraf.
Well, I mean, I think, thank goodness, on a purely humanitarian basis that there's a ceasefire there, and let's hope that holds. And what you really want is a ceasefire next door. You want a ceasefire between Israel and Palestine because just too many people have died. It's just shocking, and you really want a situation where things can normalize, if you can ever call it normalize, right?
Hi, Ashraf. I like to remain anonymous. That counselor, I wish everyone could be like her in terms of the counselors supporting and standing with the communities. That's the way counselors should be working, getting things done. She is a go-getter. I hope the community appreciates the stand that she takes. and our politicians across the board should take a similar stand. Thank you.
Well, I must say,
From Durban.
thanks for that. I never heard of Melissa Davids before, but she's a councillor in that region. I certainly know about her now, made a point of finding out exactly what she does, and just her level of conviction and how she articulated the position of a community. It absolutely blew me away, and that's why we played that, okay? And maybe, just maybe, we'll have a chat with her sometime soon, maybe tomorrow. I think we need to do that. And your point is right. I had a chat with Keys, my producer, to say too many of these elected officials, they feast on being called the honourable and nothing else. And really, just get down to service delivery. That's what we want.
I can tell you this for free, Ashraf. There's no police officer who said, you don't have human rights, this is not Soweto. There is absolutely nothing like that, and there is nothing peaceful about that protest because it affected me yesterday and this morning and the afternoon. There's nothing peaceful about burning infrastructure. South Africans are affected by water shortages everywhere, especially in Johannesburg. And colored people are okay to protest. What I just don't like is when they make it seem as if it's a colored issue. That really turns me off, and I've got no sympathy. It affects everyone in South Africa, everyone in Joburg, and it's not a colored issue. Thanks, Sisbonge here.
Well, Sisbonge, you raised a very important issue. Look, I think you're right. It's obviously not a colored issue where one community is targeted. But, when communities feel disgruntled, they then default to thinking about their community, and when it is racially defined, they inevitably do that. I mean, I hear people talking about, what about you sorting out the white people in the suburbs? What about us in, Xhosa-speaking people in the Eastern Cape, for example? So people tend to default. As far as the protests are concerned, I mean, it should not be violent protests, and I clearly won't support that. But it is a narrative globally that when protests are formidable and sometimes, and I'm needing to use my words carefully, sometimes are slightly violent, okay, and I'm not saying I agree with it, it does get the attention of decision makers in another way that an email or a memo just simply does not get it. So how else do they get us alerted to the realities of a situation? This is one of them. Violence, no. Protests, yes. But inevitably, they become violent when they find that people are just not listening to them. If you have a better way, I certainly want to know.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of CAPTCHA will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The Malian team, Stade Malien, are on a big mission to triumph in their own backyard. But Stellies of Mzansi Africa want to open their Group E curtain with maximum points in Bamako. This is the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Experience the delight of African football. Stade Malien de Bamako FC versus Stellenbosch FC on Wednesday, 27 November at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theater of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
We are going to have an update with regard to the ANC's National Working Committee regarding their summoning the entire PEC of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. That comes up after 5. We'll also have an update on the Education Minister's comments post the matric exams, and later on we'll chat to Renee Naylor in the feature we called Winning. Remember, she's the Springbok physiotherapist. She's been there for a long time, in fact, but her term has just ended. So that comes up later. Let's start, for now, let's pick up on the issue of gender-based violence in its various forms and the 16 Days of Activism campaign that South Africa celebrates annually. Well, now, an organization called Father a Nation believes a fresh and urgent narrative is emerging, or maybe should emerge, and that's one that goes beyond simply creating awareness and highlighting the need to, heal men. Let's find out more what their plans are. Craig Wilkinson with me, founder, CEO at Father a Nation. Hi, Craig.
Hi, Ashraf. Good to be with you.
Right. Tell me about it. Father a Nation. What's the difference?
Well, for many years, we've been saying that we need to look at the root causes of gender-based violence, not just create awareness. The whole idea is to prevent it from happening in the first place. And we have a nation which is beset by this issue of rape and GBV and violence in general. And this report that's come out recently by the HSRC really does affirm that there's a direct link between men's mental health and the perpetration of gender-based violence. And so the issue of raising healthy men and also healing men from the mental health issues that drive or motivate this kind of behavior is absolutely crucial to fixing the problem.
So you do also talk about differences, right? And does that suggest that the general 16 days of activism we've been having for a long time now is not working?
Well, Ashraf, I became frustrated year after year, and I'm sure you did and many others did, hearing the same things over and over again. And really all we do is trot out the statistics, 1 in 3 women, and we know that by now. And then, of course, we leap to demonizing men and calling men trash and, highlighting toxic masculinity. Instead of saying, and this is the fresh approach, and we really have been saying this for 10 years now, that no boy is born an abuser. Something must go horribly wrong on the journey from boy to man for a man to actually use his strength to physically or mentally or economically or sexually abuse a woman. Something's gone wrong. And that's the fresh approach we need to say, well, what are we doing wrong in raising our boys to become men? What are we missing? And how can we fix that?
So what's the answer? What are we doing wrong? How can we fix it?
Look, there's no silver bullet, and it's not a waving of a wand. I mean, as you know, we live in a country which is reaping the whirlwind of decades and many years and generations of trauma. Broken households, migrant labor, apartheid system, all of these things have wreaked havoc in our nation, and these become intergenerational wounds which are not fixed overnight. But if we begin as a nation to truly honor good men and honor authentic masculinity, and say, you know what, as men, you're born to be a gift to the world. Let's affirm that and honor that, and let's teach you how to use your masculinity in a positive way. So at schools, in LO classes, in the whole drive in this nation around affirming and encouraging men to be present, engaged fathers. This is the kind of movement I think we need to create. And it's a multiple-faceted movement. It's not a quick fix or a wave of a wand.
Okay, so how far are you on this journey? Because when you say we need to create, I suppose you haven't yet created it. There's a wish list.
Well, we've created it on a microscale for sure. We're seeing incredible results in various communities. In Alexander, for instance, we started in 2019 with what we call champion conversations, getting small groups of men together and facilitating a conversation which allowed them a safe space to voice their challenges and their fears, etc., and at the same time teaching them positive, healthy masculinity. We produced a piece of material called the Six-Pack of Masculine Virtues. And it plays on the word six-pack. It's not the one you drink. It's not the one you develop in your abdomen. It's the inside characteristics of men. And Ashraf, we've seen incredible results on a micro scale of men talking about the issues and unburdening themselves and turning away from all kinds of destructive behavior. So on a micro level, yes, we're creating it. We just need to scale it up to become a national movement.
Okay. Well, best wishes in terms of what you do. Give me a contact number or a website, perhaps I can direct people to.
Fantastic. Well, it's fatheranation, one word, .co.za, and anyone can just email hello@fatheranation.co.za.
Okay, got that. But feel free to tweet us as well and just tag us, SFM Radio, and tag me, Ashraf Garda. Gladly will share that if you do just that. Craig Wilkinson, founder, CEO at Father and Nation. Do you agree with his points? A completely new look in terms of how we look at men and the relationship with women in this country, and the current one's just not working. So Daniel's got a thought. Daniel saying, hi Ashraf, good afternoon. The coloured community in South Africa has been marginalised in this country before and remain till today. What has government done in these communities, right? And there's another one that I just want to pick out. Ashraf, there are men out there that are also abused by their partners, and they're suffering in silence. If they reported the matter, SAPS officials only are laughing at them. From Terence in Kakamas. I've certainly heard that issue before. So we'll talk about the ANC and WC summoning the ANC KZN PEC to a meeting, a whole lot of acronyms, and that will come up ASAP after 5 o'clock. Let's get the news now. It's Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, Minister speaks on meter box upgrades and Lebanese civilians start returning to their homes. Good day to you. The Minister of Electricity and Energy, Hossein Saramohopa, says there's been a reduction in the number of Eskom customers who didn't upgrade their meter boxes. The deadline for the upgrading of the boxes has been moved to the 13th of December after it was extended from the 24th of November. The Minister says initially there were 2.1 million people who didn't come forward at the time of the initial deadline.
About 400,000 people have since that period come through. That number now is sitting at 1.7 million, 1.7 million people that have not presented themselves. I think it's worth mentioning the following. The first thing is, I think I've heard from multiple quarters that there hasn't been sufficient communication by Eskom. We'll take you through the detail. The messaging started in October of last year.
A number of areas in the Eastern Cape have been plunged into darkness following damage to Eskom's infrastructure due to extreme weather conditions. This comes after thousands of customers were left without power over the past few days due to damaging winds and heavy rainfall. The affected areas include the Alfred Nzo, OR Tambo and Chris Hani district municipalities. Eskom says its technicians are working around the clock to restore power. Marking of the 2024 matric exams will begin on the 1st of December. The Basic Education Minister, Savia Kohube, says the papers are now being moved to marking centres across the country. She says overall the administration of the exams has been successful despite a number of weather and violence-related challenges. The Minister gave an exam update during a media briefing in Parliament.
It's understandable that our matrics would like to celebrate the end of their school career, but we urge them to do so responsibly and safely. The
Nongoma Regional Court in KwaZulu-Natal has sentenced a 15-year-old boy to 43 years imprisonment. He was found guilty of a string of crimes, including murder and robbery. This after he murdered the principal of a local high school, Alpheus Ntuli, whose body was found near a river bank. Police spokesperson Robert Nechaunda.
When police were driving to a police station from Banganoma cottages where Ntuli was residing, they spotted his vehicle driving along Mkuze Road. When they approached, the suspect sped off but later abandoned the vehicle and fled on foot. A little later, Ntuli's body was found dammed near a river bank under a bridge at Odwaleni area. His body was found with open wounds on the head and bruises all over the body. Police traced the suspect to his place of residence at Kwasnandi in Toyisa area, where he was found in possession of a firearm and ammunition which he had stolen from his grandfather. The teenager was arrested and made several court appearances before pleading guilty to all charges, leading to his sentence.
The Lobombo border post between South Africa and Mozambique has been partially closed by the SA Border Management Authority. The decision was made following reports regarding protests in parts of Mozambique. The authorities, Memo Mkhotsi.
Despite the deployment of the Mozambican Defense Force and police to the area, the road remains inaccessible for trucks. The situation is expected to persist until approximately 1600 hours today, pending further developments. The BMA officials are able to process pedestrians and small vehicles for movement in and out of Libombo port of entry.
Lebanese civilians have been trying to head back to their homes in the south of the country after a ceasefire came into force between Israel and Hezbollah. The BBC's Hugo Bachega has more.
Hours since this ceasefire came into effect, thousands of people have been trying to go back to their homes. Families, people carrying their belongings, lots of mattresses here. People are waving and carrying flags, Hezbollah flags, and also posters with the face of the late leader Hassan Nasrallah, who was assassinated in an Israeli attack in Beirut.
Top story, the Minister of Electricity and Energy says there's been a reduction in the number of Eskom customers who didn't upgrade their meter boxes. The deadline for the upgrading of the boxes has been moved to the 13th of December. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
And coming up in your sports this hour, rain stops play day one of the test between Sri Lanka and South Africa. Stellenbosch all set for CAF Confed Derby, and UEFA Champions League match day 5 takes centre stage. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 R24 westbound in Bedford View has a crash reported before Gilulis interchange. There's Nodia Drive westbound in Crest has a crash near Judges Avenue. The N1 northbound in Centurion has a crash near Old Johannesburg Road. Steve Biko Street in Pretoria has a crash near Nudia Street. In Midrand, the N1 southbound slow moving towards New Road, and the N1 southbound is slow moving towards Buccleuch interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound queuing towards the M25 Commercial Highway exit. The N2 has a truck crash reported south of Pongola, so expect delays. The N3 eastbound in Ashburton has a stationary truck after Market Road exit. The N2 northbound queuing towards the M41 Gateway exit, and the N3 westbound has a crash reported near the Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. In Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Hartwell Drive southbound is queuing at Voortrekker Road. The N1 outbound has a crash reported at the R300 highway. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. On the N2 outbound, there's a crash at Rapenburg Road, and the M5 northbound slow moving towards the N1 Koeberg interchange. With your traffic update,
weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. With crime boss the Dean behind bars, the outlaws are moving on with their lives until one of their own returns with a deadly secret, hurling them back into mortal danger. Outlaws Season 3, Fridays at 9 p.m. Then, 3 fishing fanatics embark on the ultimate extreme fishing trip to attempt to catch some of the most elusive, hard-to-catch fish across the globe. Fishing Impossible, Fridays at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the toothpaste so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampa on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The Bees are constantly seeking for a suitable way to move up to the top half. They want to triumph against Leicester City FC.
Visser is in here for Brentford. Johan Visser!
While the Foxes are committed to playing attractive football for 90 minutes as they also eye a top half spot.
Owen to Vardy, back to Ayew, scores! Leicester have done it late on the road! Jordan Ayew sweeps home! What a move!
This is the
Premier League. Catch the spectacular clash between Brentford FC and Leicester City FC on Saturday, 30 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So let's get your thoughts on some of the biggest issues we've been speaking about. Here's one saying, kindly help pass my number to Craig of Father a Nation. That comes from, I think it's Longi, Coach Hawes. I hope I got that right. But okay, whatever it is, Head Secretary from the Eastern Cape Men's Movement. I'll get Keith to try and sort it out. If we can just pass it on to them, that would be fantastic. Still to come, we'll play some sound bites on the Minister of Basic Education regarding the matric exams, post-exams. And then later on, we'll chat to Renee Naylor, who's now quit the Springbok team after being in service for 16 years. We've all seen her. She's called player number 24. She's the physio who always runs onto the pitch when there are problems with the players. You can't not miss her, and she's been there through all their great World Cup triumphs, right? So we'll chat to her later on. Well, what's about the ANC? I made the point, so many acronyms. Listen to this one. The ANC's NWC summons the ANC KZN PEC to a meeting, and I take it, if it's Saturday, it's ASAP, isn't it? Samkelo Maseko is the senior political reporter at the SABC, and hopefully you're going to make sense of all of this. Samkelo, thanks for joining us.
A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. What do we read into this?
Essentially, the ANC's National Working Committee, which looks at the day-to-day running of the erstwhile governing party, has summoned the KZN Provincial Executive Committee, PEC, to a meeting after the ANC and WC went on a fishing expedition where they went to all the 11 regions of the party in that province of the ANC, where they were politically obliterated by Jacob Zuma's MK party on what went wrong during the elections. There's been high speculation that the PEC would ultimately be dissolved by the National Executive Committee. We do know that the situation in that province has gotten worse as opposed to getting better. That's through the assessment of some leaders of the ANC. But we do know through our sources in the ANC, some have said that if you disband the PEC of KwaZulu-Natal, damned if you do, damned if you don't. So essentially, they are saying that the ANC's National Working Committee, ultimately the ANC, is caught between a rock and a hard place. So the NWC, led by the officials of the ANC and ultimately the Secretary General, who's the custodian of the organization, will give a report back to the ANC's PEC on the findings of the National Working Committee and the recommendations. There's been speculation that it's either disbandment or strengthening of the Provincial Executive Committee. Gwede Mantashe dubbed it that he's against disbandment. He would rather build from the rubble. That is the operative word, being rubble.
Interesting. I was going to pick up the same thing, build from the rubble. So, it goes without saying, right, that the ANC had to do some serious rebuilding nationwide, but particularly in the KZN province because of what's happened. It's given rise now to the MK party, right? The question is, what would be the effective thing for the ANC to do?
The truth of the matter is that the ANC is damned if they do, damned if they don't disband the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Because if you disband, you're ultimately opening up space for there to be sleeper agents who are in leadership that you will be putting in the leadership positions of the RTTs and the PTTs and the PTT within that particular province of KwaZulu-Natal. Because essentially, Gwede Mantashe has diagnosed it as saying there is no organization in KwaZulu-Natal. It's dead. It's kaput. You've got to rebuild from the rubble that is currently there. As you have rubble when you demolish a building, you build from that particular rubble going up after clearing what is there. So in essence, by clearing, it's either they clear out the current leadership that is there, or they bring in other particular individuals like Yosbu Ndebele, the former provincial chair, former premier of KwaZulu-Natal. You bring in the likes of Michael Mabuya Kulu, former deputy chair of the province, former MEC within the province of KwaZulu-Natal, seen as a staunch Cyril Ramaphosa and Sanjay Mchunu person within that particular province of KwaZulu-Natal. or you go and rebuild by dissolving this particular structure. But disbandments in the past have shown that they've not worked for the ANC. The ANC disbanded the ANC Youth League. It is only now through Colin Malaji that the Youth League is able to try and regain some strength or some form of relevance within the political and socio-political space within the country. And it would be rather interesting. You disband KZN, you can't leave Gauteng. You disband Gauteng, you can't leave KZN. And that just tells you there are also political interests of 2027 conference of the ANC. Begim Tolo, for example, the current provincial secretary, seen as a Fikile Mbalula man, an ally of Fikile Mbalula, who may propel him to be the president of the ANC or deputy president of the ANC. You've got Esboniso Duma, who's not yet confirmed which side of the coin he sits. Enoma Kukusimelane, the deputy chair, seen as Zweli Mkhize, the person who still harbors political ambitions of occupying the top echelon position or position of the ANC, which is president of the ANC. And you've got two unknowns who cannot be located politically. Dr. Ntuthuko Mahlaba, the provincial treasurer, linked to D.D. Mabuza, erstwhile deputy president of the ANC, deputy president of the country. Sipho Hlomuga, the deputy provincial secretary, who was the only one, by the way, who came back after the 2018 provincial conference, where he was elected alongside Mduseni, and all other officials of the ANC were removed in the last provincial conference where that took place, and he's the only one who was re-elected, arguably one of the strongest political individuals in that province of KwaZulu-Natal, who cannot be located to any faction nationally at this point in time. So it's going to be a difficult choice for the National Executive Committee of the ANC to make.
Well, difficult and a very, very important choice. Now, you made the point earlier about giving examples of leaders and strong leaders, right? So, can one leader appointed to a region fix up the region? I'm saying that because, we hold lots of value to who gets appointed the coach of a sporting team, because we know they deliver or they don't deliver. That means they're that important. Does that same apply to, in the political space as well? That means one good choice or bad choice can make all the difference, never mind what happens at grassroots.
It's two-coined. It's a multi-pronged approach. The ANC can no longer afford to put individuals who are internally strong in the organization but externally weak. In essence, I'm saying that if Samkele Masego or Ashraf Gada is very strong within the structures of a particular organization, but is not recepted, or does not have a particular approval of the electorate or society, it then becomes a problem. You look at the current leadership of the ANC in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, largely youthful, not intact, with a largely traditional base of KwaZulu-Natal, largely elderly as well, that rejected them because, one, they are perceived as young. Old people in KZN will say in isiZulu, angeke siholwe thina abafana abancane, or angeke siholwe umuntu wesifazane. In essence, we won't be led by young people, we won't be led by a woman. We need an authoritative voice of ubaba, where a Jacob Zuma-like figure comes in. Someone who's a former president of the ANC, former president of the country, has strong roots within the traditional aspect of the leadership positions of the Zulu culture and traditions, as opposed to Esboniso Duma, young, Begim Tolo, Etunda, Noma Kukusumelane, a woman, Begim Tolo, Sipho Hlomuga, largely seen as young boys as opposed to leaders in their rightful minds.
Okay.
So you can essentially say the ANC has to balance between appeasing the elderly community of that province, appeasing those who've got strong traditional ties, and also appeasing a younger electorate that may have these particulars resonate with them.
It's an important point. So does the ANC in that region then have a Zuma type of leader?
At this point in time, the ANC in that province does not have a Zuma-like figure, because you've got to be historical in how you contextualize it. Jacob Zuma rose to prominence on the virtue that he was being seen as someone who was being victimized by former President Mbeki, who was seen as the Xhosa president. Zuma is Zulu, and he is got the largest province in terms of the voter base of the ANC. If you look at the jump of the ANC electorally, the ANC grew by over 1.6 million votes in the province of KwaZulu-Natal because of the figure Jacob Zuma. Hence the number of votes the MK got in the last election. It shows you that people were waiting for the persona Jacob Zuma that was there, and the ANC dubbed it in that particular election report of 2009 as the Umfowethu syndrome, where people were voting for Jacob Zuma on the virtue of they were seeing him as Umfowethu. So most of them were voting for IFP provincially and voting for ANC nationally because they saw Jacob Zuma as one of their own. And hence the electoral pattern then continued to the 2014 election. Then you saw a dip in 2016. Then you saw a dip again in 2019. Then a nosedive in 2024 when Jacob Zuma re-entered the political frame by taking majority of the ANC votes away from them and taking the 300 that the EFF had gotten in 2019 on the virtue that Zuma was no longer in office and that he was being perceived as being victimized by this vendor president. Okay. Hence you saw the leaders of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa has always said that his characterization in KwaZulu-Natal has always been tribal. When people who are Zulu in particular always said Leli Venda Leli.
Okay, so fascinating, so much intrigue, by the way, just within one political party. Just the last thing for you, Samkele, you know, at the time of the GNU issues, the big issue for ANC supporters like how can you go and do business with the DA? You should rather be with the EFF and the MK party no matter what. Now, in the light of the pronouncements by Julius Malema in recent, in the last few days, in fact, about the MK party, would that shift ANC supporters thinking about, can you see how difficult it is to deal with the MK party? Because as they're talking to us, they're actually trying to upstage us at the same time.
The ANC has been handed a golden spoon by the EFF in particular. The ANC is no longer the focal point of the MK party. The MK party wants to obliterate the economic freedom fighters, not only electorally as they've done in this past election, because the ANC wasn't only the biggest loser in KwaZulu-Natal. The EFF was politically annihilated, obliterated by the MK party in KwaZulu-Natal. They took away all of those 300,000 votes the EFF got in 2019 after that performance in previous elections, where in the local elections in 2016, where they had about 80,000 votes in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. 2019 they grew to about 380,000. So that 300 went to Jacob Zuma. They were Jacob Zuma's votes anyway. If you were to take the Umfowethu syndrome report of the ANC of 2009. So the ANC has a golden opportunity because it is not on the side of the MK party to obliterate it in the structures. The MK is focused on the EFF. The EFF has now shifted its own focus away from its own NPA in December, away from its own messaging and campaigning, and focused on Jacob Zuma, the figure. History has shown the ANC tried that particular posture of trying to attack Jacob Zuma. It did not work out well for them. Julius Malema as well, very short-sighted on this particular issue. Attacking Jacob Zuma will not assist him because he has the heart of the ordinary mass of the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
That's where we can leave it. I suppose we could get into injury time or extra time on that conversation. It is so fascinating. Samkelo Maseko, senior political reporter at the SABC. He knows it all about KZN politics and more.
The Proteas are eager to play top-of-the-range cricket. However, their visitors England want to conquer the pitch battle at Willamore Park. Africa takes on Europe. What is summer without cricket? This is the second Women's T20 International Encounter, where summer cricket comes alive. South Africa versus England on Wednesday, 27 November at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Constipation got you down? Progast Colon Cleanse is here to help. With unique blends and detoxifying agents, experience relief from occasional constipation, IBS-C, and digestive block-ups. Trusted by nurses, pharmacists, and recommended by doctors. Ask for Progast Colon Cleanse today. If it doesn't say Progast, it's not the genuine product. Available at leading pharmacies nationwide. Progast, the professional's choice.
It's heating up on My Design Rules, South Africa's hottest interior design reality show, this Sunday evening at 7 on S3. Watch as our design duos get cooking on their kitchen spaces. It's the heart of the home, but with the stress of deadline hanging over their heads, it's causing nothing but high blood pressure. Channel your interior designer with My Design Rules. Sunday evenings at 7 only on S3.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
All right, so there's so much to consider and to reflect on what Samkele Maseko said, isn't it? We'll have that up as a podcast shortly. In fact, we'll have podcasts of all the conversations we've had. And let me remind you, not only do we often tweet them out and post them on Facebook too, but the best way for you to get those podcasts and share them, go to safm.co. Just go to safm.co, our website, and then look for the National Pulse. You'll find podcasts of everything that there's got some meaning that we have done, right? Okay, so what is the Minister of Basic Education had to say regarding the just about completed matric exams? It concludes tomorrow, remember? Well, she says many things, and I'm referring to Siviwe Khwarube, the fairly new Minister of Basic Education. First things first, she reflected on, well, giving it a thumbs up, in fact, a pass mark.
Some challenges, the overall administration of these exams has been successful, with minimal irregularities thanks to the collective efforts of dedicated educators, administrators, and learners themselves. The administration of these exams has highlighted both the triumphs and areas of improvement in our system. On the positive side, our stringent monitoring and ensured a fair process at all times. High-risk examination centers were closely supervised, with a minimum of 70% of our exam centers monitored during each session. This robust system helped us maintain the integrity of the exams even in the face of external disruptions. However, there were some challenges. Protest actions in various parts of the country, including Jan Kempdorp, Sibande, and in Limpopo, as well as inclement weather in Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga, disrupted exams for some learners. In the Eastern Cape alone, 319 learners were unable to write due to flooding, but contingency plans were made and they are now able to rewrite those exams. These incidents reinforce the importance of proactive planning and collaboration with disaster management teams, which have helped us mitigate the impact on these learners.
And you know the story, after the exams, what comes next? The marking, isn't it?
Must shift to the marking process, which is also a very critical phase in determining the outcomes of our learners' hard work. The department has set up 181 marking centers across the country, all of which have been audited and deemed ready. All marking centers will open on the 27th of November, with the entire process involving over 50,000 markers. The integrity of this process is absolutely important. To ensure consistency and fairness, the department has already conducted 60 of the 164 planned marking standardization meetings, during which marking guidelines are reviewed and finalized. This rigorous process will help us deliver accurate, reliable results, which are expected to be released on the 13th of January 2025.
And there's more. The Minister of Basic Education then spoke about another issue around the important issue we've been discussing earlier on, about pens down parties.
With this phase of the NSC exams, I also want to address our learners directly. The end of the exams is a time for celebration, but it must be done responsibly. I urge matriculants to refrain from alcohol abuse during pens down events and matric rage parties. These moments of celebration of achievements should not risk life and safety. It's absolutely important that we do not engage, and you do not engage in reckless behavior. There's nothing more heartbreaking than parents having to bury their children after they've endured long 12 years in school because of having really tempered with irresponsible and dangerous behavior. So we urge our learners to please practice restraint, even in times of celebration, so that you may be able to be there to accept your results and continue with the rest of your life.
And I think it's an important point. The question is how. Is it simply, as has been discussed, policing, or something that must be done internally or within the schools? Now, there's lots of voice notes. If you can, please try and keep the voice notes up to 30 seconds maximum. It allows us to play a lot more voice notes than otherwise.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. The chairperson of the governing bodies, Mr. Matakane, I think he has a right suggestion, but at the wrong time. Right now, these learners are done with their exams. They are now officially in the category of the unemployed people. They are young adults. They are now on their own. They are organizing things on their own outside school. So they cannot have direct control over them now. It's now them and their parents. That's all. Unfortunately, Bafana Victor Komalo in Memel.
Thanks for that, Bafana. We'll play more sound bites, more comments from you as well in a moment. As I said, try and keep it up to 30 seconds. It just helps with playing as many as we possibly can. Right, 5:30. Here's the news headlines with Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. If the remaining 1.7 million Eskom customers do not come forward to update their meters for the extended deadline, the power utility will lose about 34 billion rand a year. Sanco in KZN has overturned its decision to turn against the ANC in the province, and Volkswagen VW says it's selling its controversial factory in Western China. A full update at 6 o'clock.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumin Khapele.
Right, Tumi, what are we going to talk about now? It was cricket first up, then soccer.
We're going back to cricket.
Okay.
Well, the Proteas were at 84-4 after 20 overs before rain forced day one of that first test against Sri Lanka to be abandoned in Durban. Aiden Markram hit 2 early boundaries but was out in the third over. Tony Dezozi was caught after 4 runs and Tristan Stubbs was out for 16. And Captain Temba Bavuma and Carl Verreynne were at the crease before the rain disrupted. Remember, earlier on, Sri Lanka had won the toss and they elected to bowl first. Meanwhile, moving to the women's side of things, the Proteas women are also in action today. They face England in the second of the third match T20 series starting now at 6 p.m. England lead that series 1-0 after a 4-wicket win in the first T20, and Proteas woman all-rounder Elisa Murray-Marks is confident that South Africa can bounce back.
Well, yeah, if we look at the batting side, obviously losing wickets and clusters didn't really help us. Also, from a bowling point of view, tightening up a little bit in the boundary balls, but yeah, that really is some small areas of improvement needed to level the series tomorrow.
In football, Stellenbosch FC will begin its inaugural campaign in the CAF Confed Cup group stage when it takes on the Stade Malien in Mali tonight at 6 p.m. The Winelands side was impressive in the preliminary stages after scoring 11 goals while only conceding once. And coach Steve Barker heads into this match with a squad filled with Bafana talent after Devin Titus, Sage Stevens and Fawaz Bazadine recently represented the national side. Still staying with football, Mamelodi Sundowns coach Manqoba Mngqithi says that he's quite confident that his side will do well in the CAF Champions League group. This is regardless of them playing to a goalless draw against AS Maniema. Now, they're currently second on the table after yesterday's results and still yet to face AS FAR, who claimed a win yesterday to top the group, and Raja Casablanca, who sit bottom of the group.
To be straightforward in this group, I think we've got even probably more potential to win more matches away from home. I see it like that, and I also see us winning some matches at home. At this stage, I've not pressed any panic buttons because I think it could have been catastrophic had we lost this match after having lost the final. Going into this match with all the problems we had, if you look at the number of days and the number of matches and how much of a change we had to make in the starting lineup based on the physiological challenges that we had.
So there's the supposed
That's
complaints.
the complaint.
Yeah.
Okay. Point made.
Well, elsewhere, the league phase of the UEFA Champions League has reached its midway point, and the first round of the matches in second half concludes on the 27th of November. Liverpool taking on Real Madrid tonight as they look to make it 5 wins out of 5 in the Champions League. Real are without 6 big names this evening, with Vinicius Jr., the latest name to be ruled out after picking up an injury at the weekend. Ancelotti only named a 19-man squad to travel to the Merseyside. In other selected fixtures, Aston Villa take on Juventus, Monaco versus Benfica, and Celtic versus Club Brugge. Then in rugby, the Springboks will welcome Italy, Georgia, Australia and Argentina to South Africa in 2025. And while the dates are well locked in for the tests in the Castle Lager incoming series, as well as the home leg of the Castle Lager Rugby Championship, SA Rugby are only going to confirm venues and kickoff times at a later stage. Now, the Boks will start the defense of their Castle Lager Rugby Championship crown against the Wallabies. Then await tests against the All Blacks in New Zealand follow on the 6th and the 13th of September before the Boks wrap up the Rugby Championship at home on the 27th of September and away on the 4th of October against Argentina. Finally, in motorsport, with the championship title wrapped up, the attention now turns to the Constructors' Championship, which is heading into the Qatar Grand Prix this weekend. There are 103 points left on the table through 44 apiece in the Lusail race and the season finale in Abu Dhabi, with a further 15 up for grabs in the Qatar Sprint, an event that McLaren finished 1-3 at in 2023. Now, the nearest challengers for McLaren are Ferrari, who took 12 points out of the team in Las Vegas to reduce the deficit to 24 from 36, or exactly what it would need to do. On that note, it is a wrap from
Wait,
us.
hold it. I want to ask you something. Did you watch that press conference of Pep Guardiola? So he's the Manchester City coach,
Yeah.
the one that I said early on, if I could choose, if I had my own team and I could choose one coach to coach my team right now, who would I choose? That's the person I would choose. Never mind, his team has lost 5 games in a row. And then last night they drew 3-3 after being 3-0 up with 15 minutes to go.
Yeah.
So the presser,
Yes.
what did he say?
So basically, they were asking about a scratch that he had on his nose, and he was like, no, he hurt himself with his fingernail. However, he was looking to harm himself, something like that. And today he came back and said he was not trying to make jokes about issues surrounding people who harm themselves. But yeah, it was just something like...
Well, I mean, you just, I won't say do you think he's got a point. Was he out of order yesterday? Because it does send a message like saying, you know, I'm injuring myself because I lost. So, you know, like
That's what he was
self-hurt, which, I mean,
basically
you
saying.
know, it's a big issue in the world, right?
I think it is, but for me, I feel like this is my personal opinion, is that I didn't see it as him making fun of those issues. But if anything, I would have expected him to say, no, listen, I'm actually not doing that to myself. Meaning that if he made that comment, there would have been a possibility of mental health issues for him, not him making fun of the issue per se. I don't know if you get what I'm
Well, I don't know if he
saying.
made fun of the issue, but I think he was teasing himself because they drew.
Yeah.
But the problem is the signal that sends out to say it's okay to injure, to harm yourself when things don't go wrong, don't go right. And that's basically what happened to them yesterday.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, well, consider that. I wonder if others have an opinion about that. Well, the one thing he has definitely done harm to himself is his team. They haven't won 5 league games in a row and now 6 in the Champions League. If you put them all together, which is after the 3-0 draw, clearly he needs to sort himself out, and they play Liverpool on Sunday,
Listen,
I think it is.
I think he's a brilliant coach. However, I started not liking him after reading the Zlatan Ibrahimovic book.
I need to read the Zlatan Ibrahimovic book then. Let's see if I can get hold of it. Yeah. Right, more sport tomorrow.
Right then, ke nna Tumeng Kgapela, Modimo ke yo.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound has a crash reported at Denver. The N1 southbound in Fourways has a crash after Rivonia Road exit. The M1 northbound a crash before Whitney Drive, and the N1 southbound in Eldorado Park a crash on the link to the N12 west. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a crash before the M41 Gateway exit. The N2 westbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N3 eastbound in Ashburton has a stationary truck reported after Market Road exit, and the R102 is slow moving through Mount Moriah. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is queuing towards the R300 highway. The M5 northbound slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive is queuing at Voortrekker Road, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
It's heating up on My Design Rules, South Africa's hottest interior design reality show, this Sunday evening at 7 on S3. Watch as our design duos get cooking on their kitchen spaces. It's the heart of the home, but with the stress of deadline hanging over their heads, it's causing nothing but high blood pressure. Channel your interior designer with My Design Rules, Sunday evenings at 7 only on S3.
Imagine a South Africa where every child born today and tomorrow and the next day and the next had enough love, enough food, enough safety and brain power today and tomorrow and the next day and the next. Together, we will change their future. Join us by visiting
holdmyhand.org.za. That's holdmyhand.org.za.
Ask a man. Ask a man who's late for work after his car got hit by a truck, desperately waiting for help, if he's glad he saved 14 Rand on his insurance premium. Ask a man if buying the cheapest insurance was really worth it. And now ask yourself, when suddenly happens, who's there for you?
Auto in general. Car insurance with Auto SOS. Emergency accident detection and response. Visit autogen.co.za for a quote. Auto SOS is available to comprehensive car customers. A&G is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
A loving partner shouldn't take away your choices. Your choice of clothes, your choice to wear makeup and cut your hair. A loving partner shouldn't choose your friends or choose how you spend your time. A loving partner shouldn't control who you speak to. If your partner is controlling your choices, it's abuse. But I found help at Tears. *134 *7355 hash. Visit tears.co.za.
For 30 years, we've stood together, advancing collective action to end violence against women and children. But the fight is far from over. Your voice matters. Every action counts. From educating our communities to supporting survivors, it's time to unite and create a future free from fear. Join SAFM for 16 days of activism. Together we can make a difference. Together we can end the violence. Because 30 years of progress means we cannot stop now. Let's advance the fight. Stand up, speak out, take action. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
So you can catch the SAFM market update from 6 to 7 this evening, and every evening, well, besides Friday, that is, hosted by Jimmy Moyaha. It's a scene setter. Jimmy, let's talk about your moving markets, and it's such an interesting one. Why we need SAA.
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to the listeners. Yes, so there are a bunch of very intelligent people at an institution called Oxford Economics. They've completed a report, or compiled a report rather, around the impact that SAA has on the South African economy. Everything from jobs to revenues to taxable contributions and the expected impact that SAA will likely have over the next coming years. So between now and say 2029, 2030-ish, over the next 5 years. It's a very interesting report, and I'm going to dig into it with Oxford Economics to unpack what it is that we make of the national carrier. Of course, the national carrier was in business rescue back in 2021. We have come out of business rescue. In fact, the carrier is now back into profit. They have recently told us that they are debt-free and looking for an investor to the tune of just north of 3 billion rand. So we're going to look into that, look into the investment case that exists for SAA, especially in light of the developments that we've been seeing from the likes of FlySafair and their ownership struggles, and the fact that the market has lost the likes of Kulula and Mango in the past. We're going to look at that and see what the state of SAA is and the impact they could potentially have on the aviation sector, but also on the tourism sector in South Africa. Then we've also got a conversation unpacking the hospitality sector itself with Alan Gray. They seem to believe that there are some hospitality stocks that have been under pressure unnecessarily long, and there's some value that can be unlocked from there. And then we've got a conversation with a company called Identify around being prepared for identity theft or identity fraud, especially AI-driven fraud, but this is specifically in the context of your business. Now, we know this is perpetuated for you and I as personal individuals, but if you can just think about it for a moment, the impact that a business would suffer if someone impersonated a business and gained access to a business's bank accounts, gained access to a business's client book or client base, that could have some disastrous impacts. So we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at that in the context as well of the recent cyber attacks that we've seen resurging in South Africa. And then we're going to wrap things up with an executive lounge segment. We've got an executive of one of the JSE listed companies joining us today to just get a better understanding of what they do when they are not running a JSE listed entity. But before we get to that, let's take a look at how the markets have been moving throughout the day. It's been a very mixed day of movements. We look at Asian markets, they were largely in the green. Hong Kong and China leading the pack there, with Hong Kong up 2.2%, China up 1.5%. The Nikkei in Tokyo was down 0.8%. The Sydney ASX was up 0.57%. European markets were all in the red until the close, where the FTSE eked out 0.25% gains. The CAC 14 France was down 0.75%, and the DAX in Germany down almost 0.1%. The Nasdaq is currently down 0.5%, but it is still going to be trading throughout the rest of the afternoon. Our own local markets were a bit of a mixed bag as well. Industrials down 0.15%, but resources up 0.41%. That was cancelled out entirely by the loss made on financial stocks. Financial sector stocks were down 1.1%. As a result of that, the all-share was down 0.33%, the top 40 was down 0.4%, and if we look at the performance of the rand, not doing well there, 18 rand and 21 cents against the US dollar, 0.33% weaker. 1 British pound is 4% weaker, 23 rand and 6 cents. 1 euro, 19 rand and 23 cents, also percent weaker there, and 1 Australian dollar is 11 rand and 81 cents. Quick look at commodities before we go. Platinum and palladium can't seem to break back above that $1,000 level and hold there. Palladium back at $9.85 an ounce and platinum $9.33. The price of Brent crude holding steady, $73.18 a barrel. Lovely that I can say nothing to report on that front amidst all of the global tensions, especially the tensions in the Middle East. And then the gold price, $2,639 an ounce, up 0.75%. It was up a little higher than this earlier on, seemingly coming under a bit of pressure as the U.S. markets opened. We're going to look into these a little later on. There's some other U.S. data that's been coming out today. The personal consumption expenditure index, the jobs and numbers coming out of the U.S. We also have FOMC minutes expected later tonight. So there's a lot of data that's coming through, and we're going to unpack what that could potentially mean for that December rate cut from the US's perspective, but also for how we kind of end off the month of November. But for now, back to you, Ashraf.
Quick one before we wrap up, just your masterclass on what you call CAGR.
So we are doing a series on abbreviations. I thought it would be nice to just continue with that series. It kind of makes sense. But effectively what it is the definition is the compound annual growth rate. And it effectively looks at the annual growth rate of a company. There's various ways to calculate it, but we look at that annual growth rate over a period of time, assuming it takes into account a very key assumption that profits are reinvested at the end of each financial period, and if we're looking at something over a 5-year period, so we'll measure the growth rate over that 5-year period, assuming those profits would be reinvested in that 5-year period. So very interesting measure of what potential growth could look like from a company perspective. Very interesting metric that companies look at as well, and we've seen some companies report on it and say this is what we've been able to grow at or return in terms of value to shareholders if you had joined us at the start of this particular investment cycle.
Okay, Godda, thanks for that, and you enjoy your show coming up pretty shortly, in fact. We'll chat to Renee Naylor in a few minutes' time.
The Proteas are eager to play top-of-the-range cricket. However, their visitors England want to conquer the pitch battle at Willamore Park. Africa takes on Europe. What is summer without cricket? This is the second Women's T20 International Encounter, where summer cricket comes alive. South Africa versus England on Wednesday, 27 November at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Think festive season. Can you hear it? See it? Now imagine it purple. Yes, forget the tinsel, because Click season is purple. It's that time of the year for the famous Clicks 3-for-2 purple sticker promotion. Mix and match any 3 festive gifts with a purple sticker and get the cheapest one free. Clicks. Feel good, pay less. Deals valid until 24 December or while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, so we're going to chat to Renee Naylor in a few minutes' time. In fact, before we get to that, some comments from you, including the chat we had with Samkelo Maseko about the ANC in KZN, right?
Hey, Ashraf, so Samkelo is basically saying the province of KwaZulu-Natal is primitive, because he's saying the young leaders of the ANC in KZN do not appeal to the voters of KZN. That can't be true, because our king is young. So that story is not true. The reason that the ANC young leaders in KZN are treated the way they are treated is because they are pompous, they are rude. They are very good young people in the ANC that can lead the province. So please do not describe us as primitive, as if we don't want to be ruled by women. What the hell is that?
Okay, got that. What the hell is that? Right, well, there we are. It is the National Pulse after all, and you tell me what you think, right?
Good day, Ashraf. How are you? What was the decision about Mozambique when the SADC make a meeting? What was their decision, man? We never heard the outcome of it. Now people are dying again in Mozambique. Or they were just calling each other to drink some coffee and take photos. Yeah. These people, they make you very angry, man. I don't think this SADC should be closed, man. We must remove this thing called SADC because it doesn't work at all. It doesn't work at all. Why people are dying now?
Okay, and I tell you what, linked to, I don't have an answer for you, but linked to that, by the way, Hope will, Hope will, who tweets under Daddy Hope, right? Hope will Chinono, saying news coming out of Mozambique is that President Filipe Nyusi has been airlifted from Maputo to Vilanculos after another morning of heavy protests. Mozambicans in Maputo clashed with police who used excessive force in response. Well, I mean, that's the story that's come from there. So there's clearly an issue that needs to be addressed, and I concur. Now, there's just maybe 2 more I can play. Here's that ongoing story about protests.
Hi, Ashraf. I'm happy you're listening to civil leadership, but I think to make it seem like these people, because they are colored, they were being mistreated by the police is wrong. You can't just protest in South Africa. You need a permit to protest. Where I'm from, Ilensko, Pietermaritzburg, KwaZulu-Natal, if we have had the same water issues for, if not longer, the same amounts as these colored people that you are bringing on the radio. We've protested, we've had people dying, and this is in the rural areas. So why is it that you've never had any of our leaders here? Is it because maybe our English is broken?
Okay, here's the challenge, okay? We need to talk to your community. It's as simple as that. Can you just connect with my producer, Keys, and leave your details? Because I've put this challenge a long time ago to say which communities have got huge water issues. We absolutely must talk about it. So please let us know. Right, let's chat to Renee Naylor after this.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So we end the show, as always, with a feature we called Winning, right? And if you've been watching the Springboks over the last 16 years or so, it would have included 2 World Cup victories. So they certainly are winning big tournaments like the World Cup. But linked to that, you would have always seen a woman who's been running on the pitch, not because she's playing, because at that moment in time the players are not playing, because she's the physiotherapist. She holds a critically important position. And I understand that Renee Naylor has been that physio for the last 16 years. But I also understand it's the end of the line for Renee. So we thought let's chat to her in the series we called Winning. Renee, good chatting to you. It's a case of World Cup winning physiotherapist.
Good evening, Ashraf, and good evening to all the listeners. It's so good to be on your show.
Thank you, but it's a case of goodbye as well. Now, why would that be?
Well, it's a number of reasons, but mostly because I've got a fixed-term contract which ends this year, and it hasn't been renewed. And I decided to reset and look at other avenues in, where I could still support rugby and sport. I don't like the word retiring. Retirement is really for people that, want to retreat from danger, or you're really going to sit back and do nothing, and I can't afford to do that. So, yes.
I mean, I'm just thinking as I talk to you, I can't help but think of Mohamed Salah, the Liverpool footballer who's always got the same situation. It's like, talk to me, right? Would you have liked to have stayed on?
I think that any person that has been in that circle and being amidst those legends of players and in such a winning team, I don't think you ever want to leave. I think it's hard to be there, but it's probably a hard I know. It's my safe place and my sanctuary. So I'm almost in a way blessed that the decision was made for me, because I don't think it's a decision that I would have been able to make.
I can imagine that. Tell me about that journey. I mean, to get into the position to being the physiotherapist is something. To then sustain that for 16 years is quite incredible. What's that journey been like?
I've been really blessed to have such a long period with the Springboks, been through some highs and some lows in that period, and I really feel that it's in totality it's been one of my biggest blessings that that I've been able to experience this, because I think where the team started, what Springbok symbolized for South Africa in the very beginning when I was a young girl, and what the symbol has become for South Africa now, the symbol of hope. I didn't think I would live to see that, where we have helped South Africa turn their trauma into hope, and that's the most beautiful for me, to have been part of it from it wasn't like that to now when it is like that.
Tell me about your role. I mean, we all assume we know what a physiotherapist does, but certainly in the context of a rugby team on the field of play, what is your role?
So as a physiotherapist, in terms of my role with the team, is primarily injury management and injury prevention. And obviously a lot of that injury prevention happens off the pitch, off season, even pre-season. You're looking at how you can look at a player's profile and minimize their risk for injury. And obviously during the season, when we are busy with tournaments, you are looking at fixing an injury as quickly as possible so that a player would be fit to play. And you're obviously also looking if he could be fit enough to play, and you're looking, obviously looking at their well-being in totality. And then if you're referring to actually during the match, it is obviously injury prevention and monitoring what's happening on the pitch for the manager
and I would take it,
for the player.
And I would take it especially on the field, because that's what we see, right? It needs to be quick decisions. So if a player's injured and out, that's almost done for you. That's simple, right? Then you develop it later. But in the field of play, when they're going to stay on, you have to make some very quick decisions that will get the player fit enough to continue playing. And that's an art in its own way, isn't it?
Yes, and I think that the art comes in knowing your players. The better you know your player, the easier it is to make that decision, because you understand how this player thinks, how he responds to injuries, how he responds to pain, and you know that if this player is not walking properly on the pitch, or he's telling you that he's in extreme pain, you know that it's extreme pain, and he's never going to tell you if it's just a 2 out of 10 pain. You know it's a 9, 10 out of 10 pain, and you can act accordingly. So knowing your player makes a massive difference.
Absolutely. What got you on this journey? I mean, what was the a key moment on this journey that got you where you are today?
I think that, I always wanted to, that was the only career choice I had as a young girl, was physiotherapy. And I loved rugby. I loved watching rugby. So it was always a dream to work with a team. And sitting at a match during 5 World Cup, a match that was played at Newlands, I sat there and I thought to myself, imagine how amazing it must be if you could actually be with the team in the change room and on the pitch. That must be the dream position to watch a rugby match. And that's how the dream started, really. I didn't think I'd work with the national team, but I just wanted to work with the rugby team, and worked really hard for 10 years before I actually got the position with the national team.
And if there's one word finally to describe your winning journey with a World Cup winning team, that would be what?
One word is just tricky, because it's been unbelievable. It's really been surreal for me.
Okay.
If I think back over the 16 years.
Well, unbelievable, I think, is a word Chet le Clos' dad used when Chet le Clos won the Olympic gold a long, long time ago. I think it was.
Yes,
so there we are.
yes.
Completely understood. You are aligned to that type of win. So great chatting to you, and I hope whatever happens next to you will be as successful as what you've done already in the last 16 years. Renee Naylor, thank you so much. And you've been featured here in this feature we called Winning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashraf, and thank you to the listeners.
Thank you. Let's end up with, when we talk about winning, I understand there's another accolade for Thuli Madonsela, just to end with a recipient now of the Humanitarian Award by the Glamour Women of the Year Awards 2024. So we need to get on board soon. But that's the show. That's the National Pulse. Hope you got a feel for the pulse all throughout the last 3 hours. Get to SFM.coza, listen to all the podcasts, share them, have a conversation with your friends about it. Tell me about it. Just tweet us on social media. I'll certainly would like to engage with you off air as well. It's 6 o'clock, time for the news with Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Minister speaks on meter box upgrades in VW to sell its China factory. Good evening. If the remaining 1.7 million Eskom customers do not come forward to upgrade their meter boxes before the extended deadline, the power utility will lose about 34 billion rand a year.